We certainly did not stop our investments at 50. Instead, as you'll see on the chart that's in front of you, we've actually invested over $250 million in infrastructure between Florida and Illinois alone to date. Ohio is another excellent example that you'll see on here. There, we were awarded one of the initial craft grow licenses by the state in 2018. Now, this is a tiny version of what we intend to operate here in Alabama due to the license that we have out there. Yet, even in Ohio, because we commit to only building the highest caliber, state-of-the-art, fully indoor cultivation facilities, we've still invested over $23 million and counting in that state in order to produce medicine that meets our exceedingly lofty standards of care and quality. The point here that I'm trying to bring is that we will bring this same level of commitment and ongoing investment to Alabama. And the quality of medicine we end up putting onto the market will reflect that wholesale investment. Now that I've given you all a brief overview of our national presence, I'd like to introduce the Verano, Alabama team that you'll meet for presentation here today. These are some of the industry's foremost experts in their respective areas, and they have contributed to Verano becoming one of the most successful and experienced cannabis companies nationwide. With that, I'd like to hand it off to our majority owner and Chief Agricultural Officer, Mary Lanier Long, to provide a brief summary of her experience and discuss how this joint venture came to be. Mary?
Okay. Good morning, members of the commission, staff, and to my fellow Alabamians. My name is Mary Lanier Long, and I am the 51% majority owner of the applicant, Verano, Alabama. When I became a legal adult at the age of 16 so I could take on the responsibilities of my family farm after my parents died, I never thought I would have the opportunity to speak before the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. I am a farmer. Public speaking and participating in government commission meetings is not my strong suit. But given the importance of this meeting, and you can probably tell I'm nervous, but I'm confident that after our presentation, you'll see the professionalism, knowledge, experience, and track record that my business partner, Verano, brings to the table. As you know, no one in the state should have any experience growing, cultivating, or selling cannabis products, and I certainly don't, but I know what it means to be a third-generation farmer. And when you run a family farm and you feel the weight of prior generations and constantly wonder if you're doing enough to secure a bright economic future for your kids and grandkids, and I want to thank the legislature, the governor, and the commission for creating a cannabis program where everyday citizens and families like mine can compete for a license. And instead of handing out licenses based on who you know, your entire application and evaluation process is focused on what the applicants and the teams we've assembled will do for the patients of our state. And ultimately, that is what the process is about, who will get the job done for Alabama. I love our state, and I think we deserve the best. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing all the excuses of not enough workers, supply chain issues, creating shortages for things that we just need every day. But while that's annoying, that's unacceptable when you're dealing with the medicine that people need to live a better life. Alabama's patients deserve a stable, safe, year-round medicine supply. That's why I chose to partner with Verano. Our team has found a way to succeed where so many others have failed. I know each of you is serving on the commission because you want to get this right for the citizens and patients of Alabama, and I do too. As you will hear, our team will get the job done for Alabama's patients. And thank you for the opportunity to compete for a license, and thank you for your time. I am pleased to turn over our presentation to John Tipton, President of Verano's Southern Region.
Thank you, Mary. We look forward to building a wonderful business here in Florida with you. And thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm John Tipton, president of Verano Southern Region. I was a CPA for 30 years, although I recently retired my license. I have 34 years of experience in the ag industry, working with fruits and vegetables, mostly field-grown fresh market tomatoes. I joined Plants of Ruskin in 1998, and in 2017, I began my rewarding career in the medical cannabis industry. I'm incredibly proud of the business that we built, and I'd like to show you the quality that you can expect here in Alabama by showing facilities that we own and operate today. This is showing our emulsification process that our scientists developed so that oil more easily mixes with water. Our meter dose inhaler that sets us apart. Being here today brings me back to the early days of the Florida Medical Cannabis Program. The state faced many of the same challenges and concerns you're working through here. We know it isn't easy. Everyone has their perspective, and you're all doing your best to serve the patients and citizens of Alabama. We were one of the first licenses in Florida. As of today, only 2 of the original licensees have not sold or changed ownership. Like any entrepreneur, I'm glad our business is successful, but I'm incredibly proud of our work helping patients live a more fulfilling life. I would like to share some history of what we've done, not to brag, but because you can judge applicants by their track record. I'm very proud to be a senior executive of a company that has helped unlock the benefits of medical cannabis for patients and caregivers across the country, and hopefully very soon here in Alabama. When we got started, I never thought I'd end up running a publicly traded company. That was not my motivation. My goal was simply to be the best and provide the highest quality products. Our team never set out to be the cheapest or the largest. We wanted to be known for being the best at our trade. We hired 2 PhD scientists to create unique, high-quality products for patients. And with a 30-day requirement to be operational, we faced a decision that would alter the future of our business. We own roughly 400,000 square feet of greenhouses on a 20-acre site with plenty of room for expansion. It would have been considerably cheaper to grow the crop in a greenhouse. But my team and I believed that a medical quality, pharmaceutical grade product needed to be grown indoors where you can mitigate risk and control the environment. Pictured on the screen is the abandoned warehouse that today is the thriving CGMP certified Apollo Beach cultivation facility we showed in the video. We've invested over $40 million in Apollo Beach since it became operational in 2017. Equally important, we've never lost a crop there. In those early days, in a building that had been bank-owned for 15 years, we became operational within the 30 days required by the state. The experience has guided our approach to cultivation and how we enter states once licensed. We are launch ready. But first, I'd like to explain our strategy to set Alabama up for success in delivering outstanding results for patients in need of alternative medicine. First, we believe that given the climate in Alabama and pharmaceutical quality products, the Commission demands an indoor cultivation is necessary. With an indoor facility, you have complete control of the environmental factors that impact the cannabis plants in this cannabinoid profile. Complete control of the environment is critical so that you can meet the specific needs of different cannabis strains. Unlike greenhouses, indoor facilities aren't dependent or impacted on external weather factors. It's also important that our operations respect and reflect the community which we're operating in. Indoor facilities have increased security and privacy. The crop isn't visible or accessible to pests or the public. Even things such as the wind-blowing odors of the cannabis crop are mitigated by an indoor facility that is sealed and has exhaust scrubbers. I could go on, but to us, there's really only one viable option for Alabama, and it's an indoor grow operation. Our video showed you the Apollo Beach facility, where we are going to bring the same precision, quality, and commitment of excellence to Alabama. We have a facility in Luverne that our experienced real estate and construction team identified. It already has all the necessary utilities at the site. Today, our company is operating 14 cultivation centers. We have all the expensive, hard to obtain, and long lead time items necessary to commence cultivation operations in our company's existing inventory. Our inventory includes state-of-the-art and innovative cultivation, processing, HVAC, and security equipment needed to complete the build-out. The day after our license is in hand, we will ship our prefab walls, piping, ductwork, all other materials to retrofit the build-out the existing space. We'll complete phase one, a 7,500 square foot of the 60,000 square foot building facility that we have for indoor cultivation, processing, and secured transportation. Initially, we will use a CO2 extraction method, but we have experience deploying all different types of extraction. We will have medical cannabis products available for testing by the state designated lab within 4 to 6 months. Once certified by the lab, they will be available for the state's patient base. Quality and patient safety will always be at the forefront of our operations. We will incorporate an in-house testing model using SOPs modeled after Alabama's testing protocols. As part of the initial commitment of $30 million to build Verano, Alabama, we will bring our Zen Leaf dispensary operation to the state. We have access and the rights to establish dispensaries in Montgomery, Dothan, Tuscaloosa, Decatur, and Birmingham. None of these 5 dispensary locations are within a 1,000-foot radius of a school, daycare, or child care facility. Zen Leaf, our distinguished retail operation, is designed to provide a serene and specialized environment for medical cannabis patients. At Zen Leaf, we prioritize the well-being of our patients, creating a space where comfort meets expertise. The ambience is meticulously crafted to evoke a sense of tranquility, ensuring a calming experience for patients seeking relief. All 5 dispensaries will be operational within 6 months. A certified dispenser, who's also a licensed pharmacist, will oversee all dispensing activities. We'll provide discounts regularly. We as a company currently provide a 22% discount for veterans and 25% discount for pediatric patients. As an experienced operator, we also have extensive data and experience understanding how medical programs mature over time. We're in this for the long haul. We don't exit markets. We build a lasting relationship with patients, communities, and regulators. We've committed at least $30 million, though our track record is that we will invest whatever necessary to deliver on our promises. We believe this market will mature and require disciplined expansion for our operations. By the end of year 3, we believe the cultivation will scale to a canopy of 50,000 square feet of indoor flowering product and employ around 280 jobs. With years of experience and after personally overseeing the launch of our Florida operations, we've learned what works and maybe more importantly, what doesn't. Experience plays a huge role. We know what to do, what not to do. You all have also done your homework. You know what works and what doesn't. Alabama patients deserve the best. We've implemented best practices across our facilities to ensure we always mitigate risk, instill the latest and most effective standard operating procedures, and continue growing and producing safe, high-quality medical products for our patients. Pods may be appropriate for others, but for us to put our name and reputation behind our products, we believe our phased expansion of the indoor cultivation center is the best plan. The medical cannabis field is an extremely difficult industry to enter, given the restrictions on banking resources, limited access to capital, and high tax burden. Sound financial management is critical. Finally, while we were one of the most experienced operators, I want to clarify Verano's goal. Our focus in Alabama is on serving the patients of Alabama to the best of our ability. Just like in our most recent state entry, West Virginia, where it's a strict medical program, our mission here will be to help responsibly implement the program as authorized by Alabama's elected officials. I'd now like to invite Chris Ferguson to discuss our compliance and safety initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to address the members and the staff of the Commission again. I am Chris Ferguson, Vice President, Regulatory Community Compliance for Verano. As you may remember, I served as the Director of the Office of Medical Marijuana Use in Florida for 3 years. It's a unique experience now being as an applicant on this side of the podium rather than being in your position. When we met in 2021, as I was Florida's cannabis regulator, it was part of your Commission's important work to review best practices and lessons learned. Like all of you, I believe in the mission that medical cannabis can improve the quality of life for patients. More than a year after we first met, I joined Verano on December 27, 2022. After 12 years of service at the Florida Department of Health and 3 years as the director of Florida's medical program, I wanted to further grow the medical cannabis and bring lessons I had learned to regulatory agencies across America in my new role. I decided working with Verano was the best fit because I knew and I had witnessed the commitment to compliance, quality, and excellence. While this industry is new to Alabama, you are not starting from scratch. You can license the best of the best from operators with a proven track record. You're doing your work deliberately, and we commend you for the approach because we all believe Alabama's patients deserve the best. Since this is an interview, I'll review our company's track record of compliance, patient safety, product innovation, and excellence in operations, and to explain how awarding us a license will benefit the Commission, the patients, and the state. Cannabis industry is one of the most secure and regulated industries in America. As James said at the beginning of the presentation, a license is a privilege, and operators must be good stewards of the license. We believe that being a responsible partner for the state means that at every aspect of the business, we must instill a culture of compliance, maintain an unwaveringly commitment to safety, and follow our operating protocols day in and day out. I've been in your shoes, and I know how many of the applications and promises sometimes blend together. A lot of applicants know the right things to say and know what to put in an application. Commission has a very difficult responsibility of selecting partners who you believe have the experience and the proven track record that will follow through if licensed. Here's what Verano will bring to the state of Alabama and AMCC if you give us the opportunity to serve your patients. If you're looking for a partner with experience in implementing and operating state-of-the-art systems, Verano has a proven track record, working with 13 state regulators, all with their own systems, procedures, and regulations. If you're looking for a partner who understands the importance of track and trace and robust security protocols, judge Verano's record of safety. I'd like to touch on a few of the aspects that John covered earlier in his overview and what Verano will provide with reliable, safe supply of medical cannabis for patients. At our cultivation centers, Verano has industry-leading commitment to quality control and has obtained current good manufacturing practices certifications, a hallmark of pharmaceutical excellence. We will obtain the same certifications here in Alabama. If given the opportunity, we would deploy our hard-earned intellectual property, top executives, and operational managers to Alabama to build our business and meet our deadlines, just like we did in the 5 case studies of Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Ohio, and West Virginia. We are pioneers in this industry, and our team is among the most experienced. So we aren't learning on the job or trying to figure it out as we go. Our most senior leaders would work with our newly hired in-state team to pass along and train Verano, Alabama team members on our procedures, protocols, and operations. For instance, my job would be to teach the new hires about Alabama's regulations and to coach them on the importance of compliant operations day in and day out. We implement cultivation practices that guide the genetics and the strain integrity of the plants we're growing. At our indoor cultivation facilities, tight control growing conditions, including temperature, humidity, light, and nutrients to control plant health and cannabinoid profile. We have proven measures to mitigate pests, diseases, to maintain the purity of the medicinal plant. And as John stated, the Apollo Beach facility has never lost a crop. Verano has established standards of trimming, timing of harvest, and processing to manage our crops efficiently and responsibly. We invest in and conduct in-center testing for potency, compliance, and the identity of harmful contaminants, pesticides, and residuals before the products leave our facility. Our team has processes to ensure the formulation consistency, to ensure dosage and ingredient ratios that are met for capsules, tinctures, our meter dose inhalers, and all other approved products. We use child-resistant packaging to enhance product safety once it's in the patient's home. Our batch tracking systems allow us to monitor every product from cultivation to distribution, facilitating recalls if necessary, just like you would expect from any other regulated pharmaceutical product. Finally, Verano employs state-of-the-art security systems and technologies with cutting-edge surveillance, access control measures, and cybersecurity protocols. The reason Verano is one of the most dependable, efficient, and trusted operators in every state we operate in is because our culture of compliance and our commitment to adhering to standard operating procedures and our proven training methods to enhance the careers and knowledge of Verano's nearly 4,000 team members. Having served as the former director of one of the largest and most successful medical marijuana programs in the country, I empathize with the immense pressure you face in ensuring the success of this initiative to benefit the patients who seek a better quality of life. I know how hard it is to get a program built and operational. I want to publicly commend the efforts of the Alabama regulatory staff for actively reaching out and seeking insight from other states such as Minnesota and Michigan. You became members of CANRA to learn from the experiences of other cannabis regulators. That step demonstrated to all applicants that Alabama demands the best. Verano takes its commitment to compliance, safety, and quality seriously. I thank you for your time, and I would be honored to work with you in the future as a licensee for months and years ahead. It is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Joanna, who will explain our approach to patient outreach.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning. I'm Joanna Skidopoulos, Vice President of Outreach here at Verano, where I oversee a team of 15 outreach managers and coordinators nationwide. Before joining Verano, I was a licensed pharmacy technician for 6 years, but I joined Verano because I saw the difference medical cannabis made in the lives of patients. My team provides assistance and education in a HIPAA-compliant manner in the states where we operate. Our job is to provide concierge-level healthcare assistance to individuals who are seeking access to medical cannabis because they have nowhere else to go and traditional regulated pharmaceutical treatments are not effective. These individuals have an underlying medical condition, and our job is to help them enroll in the state program so that they can access safe, legal, regulated medical products that will improve their quality of life. While our company is in the healthcare business, we believe in providing a hospitality-style experience. Doing right by our patients, physician partners, and the communities we serve guides every aspect of our business. My team takes a holistic approach to engagement, education, and outreach. We have 2 tracks that we focus on. 1, assisting patients through the application process and obtaining their medical card from the state. And 2, like any other pharmaceutical company with a new product, we engage with and educate physicians on our medical cannabis products and treatment solutions. We provide doctors with information about the state's regulations, qualifying conditions, and certification process so they can make educated decisions about the best care and treatment options for their patients. Additionally, we provide introductory information to physicians about the difference between strains, delivery devices, and onset of the medication so they can understand how their patients could have access to and use cannabis. I've personally been involved in introducing our outreach efforts in active states where we operate, and in states anticipating an initial medical program launch with the patients and physicians in Ohio and West Virginia. We've helped states initiate programs and know how demanding, taxing, and complicated a program launch can be. Citizens, caregivers, and physicians have innumerable questions about how to qualify and the steps to go through in the process. Our team has the training and experience to provide patients in need and physicians with the assistance and support to get your program running smoothly without overwhelming state regulators. Patients and their caregivers want information and answers, all of which must be conducted in accordance with HIPAA and best practices for patient privacy. As part of this educational and enrollment support process, our team begins to educate patients from the moment they reach out to us. Our outreach includes educational information about different cannabis strains, their characteristics, and how a product would alleviate symptoms of certain medical conditions, comprehensive information on the endocannabinoid system, helping grow the understanding of how cannabis interacts with the body, the nuances of cannabis, including sativa, indica, and hybrid strains. Our educational resources also cover the significance of terpenes. Patient safety is our top priority. We provide patients with the best practices on securely storing medical cannabis to prevent unintended access by children or pets. Verano's commitment to being a good partner extends beyond our best-in-class cultivation, dispensaries, and products. We help educate, inform, and assist qualifying patients so they can begin to benefit from access to safe, legal, regulated medical cannabis products. Our team has done it before, and we look forward to serving the patients of Alabama. A pivotal figure in our patient-centric approach and comprehensive outreach efforts is our National Clinical Director, Chrissy Bernazzani, who I would ask to discuss additional details of our pharmacy-driven outreach initiatives.
Thank you, Joanna. Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Chrissy Bernazzani, and I'm a registered pharmacist and Verano's National Clinical Director. To begin, it's great to be back in Alabama. I was last in Montgomery in 2021 to see my son graduate from officer's training at Maxwell, and my younger son is a proud graduate of the University of Alabama. And I'm ecstatic to have future in-laws in Jemison. Prior to joining Verano in 2015 to help launch the medical cannabis program, I spent 25 years in community pharmacy, working in a variety of settings, including chain, outpatient, and independent pharmacies. I'd like to mention that the clinical director requirement in Maryland did not become official until 2020. Yet Verano chose to have and to pay for a clinical director from the start, not just when it became a requirement, demonstrating our commitment to treating cannabis as medicine. I'm a founding member of the National Clinical Director Consortium. This organization was created to provide the perspective of the medical professionals who are working directly with the patients in the dispensary every day. We collaborate on best practices and serve as a resource to companies, regulators, and officials. In my role with Verano, I lead and work with a team of 50 pharmacists and counting in Pennsylvania and Connecticut. I'm extremely proud to oversee our clinical registrant relationship with Drexel University in Pennsylvania, where we are currently finalizing our next study, aiming to develop tolerance break guidelines. Pennsylvania pharmacists are also participating in preceptorship with local pharmacy schools, allowing future pharmacists to immerse themselves in the emerging field of cannabis medicine. Others on the team have discussed our clinical and medical roots as a company. Verano's ongoing collaboration with pharmacists is part of our commitment to provide patient-centric care. Our pharmacists provide intensive education in pharmacology and medication therapy management, including drug-drug interactions and drug-disease state interactions, experience in controlled substances inventory management, comfortability and ability to work with healthcare providers, and a background of counseling and interacting face-to-face with patients. Working with pharmacists also brings state regulators a sense of security, professionalism, and a duty of care. As this commission knows from Dr. Blakemore's service, pharmacists bring a vital perspective and knowledge base to medical cannabis. Our team of pharmacists are a key component of our internal and external education initiatives. Internally, I develop and train our team to ensure patients receive the best care and interact with knowledgeable, passionate, and caring cannabis advisors. Our pharmacists contribute content to the Verano University training programs to ensure our colleagues have access to the latest science, research, and data about cannabis, as well as risk reduction strategies and root cause analysis. Our comprehensive training program encompasses foundational, intermediate, and advanced level courses on the use of cannabis, from pharmacology and therapeutic applications to responsible use and public health considerations. Externally, our pharmacists provide educational outreach to interested groups of prospective patients, including veterans, seniors, cancer patients, parents of children with epilepsy or autism, and many others. Our pharmacists will work with healthcare providers who wish to learn more about cannabis treatments and how to safely guide their patients. As we all know, opioids have ravaged our country and caused innumerable tragedies. I've been fortunate for the last 5 years in running to have the opportunity to educate future pain management providers at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. One of my more rewarding outreach presentations has been speaking at a quality of life retreat hosted by a ministry of the Baltimore-Washington Conference of the United Methodist Church. Our pharmacists bring enthusiasm to our role, but we are also motivated by our interactions with our patients and caregivers who tell us how our work has transformed their life. For my team, this is not just a profession, it's the privilege of witnessing the resilience, restoring hope, and improving the lives of those whose options once seemed exhausted. I am proud to be a cannabis pharmacist, and I'm even more proud to be a Verano pharmacist. Thank you for your consideration. I'd now like to invite my colleague, Rich, to provide some background on our financials.
Thanks, Chrissy. I'm Rich Tarabchak, Executive Vice President, Corporate Controller, and Chief Accounting Officer at Verano, and I'd like to thank the commissioners and the staff for the opportunity to speak today. When Miss Mary chose Verano, she has a partner who has a long history in the cannabis industry, successful record of standing up medical cannabis operations, financially stable, and truly a committed partner. We have a proven track record of being a premier operator and one of the best-run companies in the industry. Our revenue over the past 12 months was $925 million. We recently revised our free cash flow guidance, which now is the highest in the industry, and that's an indication of our ability to grow and invest further in the business. We have $130 million on the balance sheet in cash. We have paid over $135 million in federal, state, and local taxes this year. We have leading industry margins, which is really an indication not only of profitability, but also of our expertise in the business and the preference of our customers for our products. And again, we mentioned earlier about our investment in other medical cannabis areas. I think that demonstrates that $340 million that we will be here today, tomorrow, and in the future. Our $30 million investment in Alabama that we're committing to, this is a level of investment we believe is truly necessary and will provide really us to be a successful long-term participant. Our large investment indicates that we don't cut corners, and we plan on being in the state for a long time. One of the most important aspects, I think, of our investment really is the generation of jobs. We're committing to about 450 jobs, and really they'll join our 4,700 employees that we have today. We have an exceptional track record of basically developing employees. Many of our entry-level employees now are, in upper management positions, and we look forward to really 450 new members of our Verano family. So I thank you for your time today, and I'd like to ask my colleague James to come up and conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Rich. As I said, 45 minutes probably wouldn't be enough time to summarize who we are as a company and what we plan to bring for Alabama. Obviously, I know you guys have our very, very lengthy application. You can go through and see all the details that we provided in length there, but we'd like to conclude now. And again, thank you all for the opportunity. This has been a very long ride for all of us, and I know on behalf of everybody for our company nationwide, and myself personally, we're very excited about this opportunity to have to come and present to you guys face to face and you know, show you who we are in person. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leventis. I know you got some questions coming from commission members, so who wants to go first? Go ahead, Mr. Harwell.
Mr. Chairman, thank you all. Good presentation. Share a little bit more about your growing operation. You kind of briefly just went over that, but what kind of growing facilities will you have?
I'd love to bring John back up and, you know, address a little bit more of the specifics.
Sure. And I assume you're asking what we would bring to Alabama?
Right, what you would do here for growing your plants.
Yeah. As I stated, you know, we have a 60,000 square foot facility already identified in Laverne, and you know, we would bring our state-of-the-art growing processes. You know, we do things a little differently than a lot of the other operators as far as you know, creating separation with rooms, making sure that you know, because you know, you are growing plants, if you have a problem in one room, it does not migrate or generate to the next grows. So you know, we would bring in you know, our grow tables, our lighting, our HVAC, which is an area where a lot of people fail in that they under-provide HVAC. That's one of those lessons learned that we had. And integrated pest management. We use a lot of beneficial insects, oils, things of that nature. You know, when you're growing any crop really, but cannabis in particular, you have to try to change up that pest management some because the pest will get used to one way. So you need to make sure that you have a number of different options available for treating those pets and switch those off from time to time. We have one of the most robust systems for monitoring our rooms. We can monitor our temperature, our humidity, airflows, virtually every aspect of that growing process, from not only a monitor outside the room so that people don't have to go into the room and breach that security to see what's going on, but our growers can actually access that information on their phones. And if, let's say, an AC unit goes down, they will get an alert on their phone saying that there's a problem with that room. And if they're not at the facility, they can contact somebody to control it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, James. Any other questions? Dr. Jensen, go ahead.
So the process will be similar to Florida, where you had this huge dilapidated warehouse, and then you go in and just refurbish a small portion of it to try to get things up and going initially, or?
Yeah, if you take the Florida warehouse as an example, which I think works as a pretty good example for here, we built that out in what I considered 4 phases. Our contractors considered it 7, but some of them were simultaneous. So that in Florida, we because that warehouse was much more dilapidated than the one we have here in Alabama. Actually, some of it had to be raised. A lot of it had to have the walls, insulation, things like that removed. You make sure that there's no mold, no pest, nothing like that in the facility, and you really, by the time you're finished, you've really got a rebuilt new facility. We were proud to do it in Apollo Beach with a warehouse that had been sitting empty for 15 years, and it was basically a blight on the community, and we were able to turn it into something beautiful that we're really proud of. And I can say that when you talk about the smell and the things that you get concerned about with cannabis, we've never had one complaint from the neighbors in Apollo Beach.
And let me see. So I know someone addressed it earlier, but as far as regulatory and compliance issues in all these 13 states, nothing ever?
Oh, I would never say that. No,
Okay.
no, I would never say that. Nothing major that I can think of. Obviously, you have the small issues where maybe somebody hands out a pamphlet that they weren't supposed to hand out, an employee or something. But we've never had a major issue that I can recollect. James.
Obviously, I handle our compliance across the nation, and we actually, I'm very proud of the fact that we've not officially trained a lot of our inspectors in many of these states, but we get new inspectors all the time. As we've discussed, we've helped launch the medical programs in 5 different states, and so we kind of take those best practices. And I know that your inspectors here are going to be brand new; they're going to be learning this. As you know, we've got Chris Ferguson here, who ran the Florida program for many years, oversaw the inspectors as well. And so, I've seen situations where it's kind of interesting. You get a new inspector, and I've had them actually before ask for one thing, like a modification, slight changes in our SOPs, and then a new inspector comes and they want it changed back to the right way that we had it in the first place. So, we do get, notes from them from time to time, and we have a lot of inspectors that come weekly. Some of them come more often than that. And so we get, notes and points for clarification and things like that, but nothing ever major that's, impacted our business.
Thank you. A lot of jobs, that's great. I see you have 401k, but could you give me a little more information on your compensation practices as far as wages and benefits?
Sure. I mean, without going into, too much of the specifics, obviously, we always pay above market wage. In many of our states, our employees are union employees. I'm very proud. I know Rich kind of touched on this very quickly. At a lot of our locations where we've been operating for close to a decade now, when we launched those facilities, one good test case is Illinois. It's in a very rural area, very far south in the state, basically on the border of Arkansas. Very low population. We're by far the highest, employer in the entire region of that state. When we started, we had a lot of people coming down and they were renting houses, and they were, entry-level people that were new to the industry. This is back in 2015, 2014. As I go back down there now, on occasion from time to time now, those same people, they own their houses there. They're big contributors to the community. And those people have moved up to, corporate positions and general manager positions and, director, vice president level positions across our national scope. So when we come to a place like Alabama, we truly do take, not just the job generation, we're throwing out numbers like 450 jobs. And those are really good, well-paying jobs for people that are entering a brand new industry. The real benefit is the long-term partnership. Like we said, we don't exit markets. We come here, we invest heavily, we plan to stay. And that trickles down to the employees as well. We're hopeful that a good portion of those 450 jobs that we create are not just entry-level jobs for these people, but it's an entry-level job where they can learn a brand new industry that's new across the nation and hopefully build their career and go on to great things. And we've seen it many, many times before. And so that's one of the most exciting things about something like this.
And health insurance?
We have health insurance, 401k. We've got, I know one of the slides outlined it, but we have pretty robust, as a national company, we have pretty robust benefits across the board.
Okay, thank you. Banking relationships. Do you have that established already in Alabama?
We've spoken to a number of banks in Alabama. I don't recall the names of some of them. I apologize. But actual depository relationships with banks used to be a big problem for us. I could go on for days and days about, banks pulling our, and shipping money like in the back of my car. But it has not been a problem for probably 5+ years at this point. We're in good shape.
You also said that you would not go for the low cost, which I get, but can you give me an idea of what the patient cost will be on average? We've had some discussions with other people. Most patients come 2.5, 3 times a month, and they talk in terms of 200 milligram as some kind of dosing. Do you have an idea what those costs might be in Alabama?
Yeah, our average ticket in medical markets is about $85 to $90 per visit. And our average ticket in most of our medical markets is around $85 to $90 per ticket. And we see most of those patients usually about twice a month.
Okay. And then finally, you're in, again, a lot of states. Have you ever been involved in lobbying for recreational cannabis use?
I'm very happy that you asked that. We have actually 2 really good test cases that you guys have probably all seen very recently. They were happening pretty much simultaneously in Florida and Ohio. And these are 2, obviously we've talked at length about, our operation and launching that medical program in Florida. We were also, as I mentioned very briefly, we have a craft grow and 5 dispensaries in Ohio. We helped launch that medical program as well. That's one of those states where we were helping train our inspectors because it was the first go-around for Ohio. Both of those states have had very, very recent ballot initiatives that have taken place. I don't want to misquote things here. You can look it up, but I know that process in Florida raised, I think, $30–40 million in pursuit of adult use there. Ohio was probably very similar. I don't know the number that they raised. We're very active in those markets, but we are medically focused. We contributed $0 to both those initiatives. Okay. It's not something that we can control, but
right.
Our focus is we are laser focused on promoting the medical program for our patients.
And I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it. So do you have states where you're supplying adult use
We do, yes. I know a couple people have presented, and you guys have asked that question. Unfortunately, if a state turns to recreational, the business model just, I mean, it would be impossible at that point. But I will say, in those states, we are very, very, very proactive on continuing to promote adequate supply and clear access to medicine for the patients. We do set a priority for our patients in many of our states. We actually had a number of Northeast states that did go recreational within the last year. And we set very clear, very public plans about how to promote priority for our medical patients, including access to parking up front. They skip the line. We have dedicated point of sale registers for them. We designate product that's set aside so that if our inventory starts to run low at a retail dispensary, we'll turn away the adult use customers and we promote our medical supply.
So I think you answered my questions, but the dispensaries then become both medical and adult use, or they're not
It depends on
separated?
the state.
Okay.
We do have medical-only dispensaries, and we're very proud of those as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your questions.
Dr. Bernazani, is that right, correct? Are you kind of in charge of all of your pharmacists scattered across the 13 states that maybe are, I guess, are attending your dispensaries? And how do y'all manage those as far as a pharmacist maybe in each dispensary, or is it just a technician? Can you get to the details of that?
Sure, sure. In Connecticut, we do have 2 or 3 pharmacists in each dispensary. That is required by the regulations of the state of Connecticut. And in Pennsylvania, the same. We do have pharmacists staffing every dispensary. Those are our only states right now that do mandate the pharmacist participation. But we always believe that having that pharmacist presence there is the best way to address all of our patients' needs.
Okay. You oversee pretty much that whole program, is that right? That part of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So are you saying that you have pharmacists in all dispensaries, or?
No, we do not
just
have
the
pharmacists in all of our
regulations?
dispensaries.
Okay, then how do you manage those that don't?
Training. Lots of education. We take our training program incredibly seriously because we do have dispensaries without pharmacists. That's been something that's really been a difficult adjustment for me as far as leaving my traditional pharmacy to come into the cannabis space, but I've learned and have been incredibly supported by Verano in developing a comprehensive training program. We've launched the Verano University that has various levels of coursework that is appropriate for our entry-level employees all the way up to our managers and even to our pharmacists who are new coming into this field. So it's a challenge. I will admit it's a challenge, and we are addressing that to the best of our abilities through training.
In those 2 states that require pharmacists to be in your dispensaries, are they much easier to manage from the dispensing side of it, or is that not a problem in the other states?
I would say that most of our dispensaries that have the pharmacists are going to be more focused on the patient care. We do have general managers who will operate the day-to-day. Our pharmacists will oversee the inventory. They will oversee the patient care, and we can leave the managerial stuff to our managers. And in both cases, though, our dispensaries work very efficiently.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
If you don't mind, I would like to supplement our business plan for Alabama. It does include employing pharmacists at our dispensaries.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, James.
thank you.
I've got one more question, I think, from Mr. Tarapchik. There is talk and appears to be issues with federal tax liability. Can you address kind of for our commission members to kind of put us at ease, I guess, from what we see in the news and things like that, but as far as tax liability and tax issues and taxes owed and anything like that?
Yeah, and so, I mentioned earlier that, we have actually spent $135 million paying taxes, basically, through the 9 months of the year. And I will tell you that by the end of this quarter, that number will be closer to 190. So what we do is, and again, because of the way, and again, from a state perspective, we are fully caught up on every state out there. And it's only on the federal side that we manage kind of the payments because of the interest rates. So basically on the federal side, you have the ability to, the interest rates on that money is about 8 to 10%. And so, as you can see, we have money on the balance sheet, but we're using that for other things. But it's a structure in which it's an effective capital management to handle the taxes the way we are. And I will tell you is if you look at our competitors, they're in similar situations. So.
Okay, we just need an explanation to that effect. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else, any other commission member have a question for the Verano team? Any of our online commission members?
Only thing, Chairman.
Dr. Blakemore, go ahead.
Yeah, I only got a brief question. Have you guys touched base with the schools of pharmacy here in the state of Alabama? And if so, are you guys interested in kind of creating a partnership to grow the knowledge base of pharmacists that are currently practicing pharmacy here in the state of Alabama and how they can assist medical cannabis dispensaries?
We would love to have that opportunity. That has not been explored yet, but we definitely will be doing that. Having pharmacy students in our dispensaries has been really an extraordinary experience, not only for our company, but for these pharmacists who are getting out into the field.
Anything else, Sam?
No, Chairman, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Blakemore. He's our pharmacist, one of our commission members. Anyone else have a question for Verano? Well, thank all of you for your time. Thank you for coming today and making the presentation and being here today.
Thank you so much for your questions. We do appreciate it.
We thank you so much.
Thank you all.
We're going to take a short bathroom break. We do have some time in Sustainable Alabama. If you're ready to go, we'll go ahead and get y'all lined up. But we're going to take a break while we have a chance. I know that you're not scheduled till 10:20, but we can start a little earlier if you're ready. So we'll take a short 10-minute break. Well, it sounds like we're ready to go. We have Sustainable Alabama, an LLC, and I'll ask Mr. Justin A. Day to make a few comments about this application before we proceed. Justin?
This is applicant number 1675, Sustainable Alabama LLC. You have their complete application, the applicant summary. There were no pass-fail items noted on the application. You also have brief in support of their application in your materials.
Thank you, Justin. You, Mr. Bramlett?
No, I'm Warren Cobb.
Warren Cobb, all right, I'm sorry about that. Mr. Cobb, if you don't mind, as your presenters come up, you can introduce each one for the benefit of Michelle, our reporter, or they can introduce themselves.
Sure, thank you.
So, and watch the shelf up here. You probably have noticed the time frame will be up here. Make note of that as you progress through your presentation. So the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Warren Cobb. I'm a lifelong resident of Alabama and one of the owners of Sustainable Alabama. I just heard another company tell you about a lot of what they've done in other states. I'm excited to tell you what our owners have done in the state of Alabama over the course of their lifetime. We're 100% owned by Alabama residents, longtime Alabama residents. I'd like to thank the Commission for twice awarding Alabama an integrated license, and we're excited to give this presentation today to validate those decisions. We'd also like to thank you all for showing grace under fire these last few months. I don't know how I would have been able to handle what's been coming at you with such dignity and class. Thank you all. First off, I'd like to recognize our research partners with Jacksonville State. We have here today with us President Killingsworth and Dr. Lori Hemsley, who we've agreed to do a research project with. Sustainable committed nearly a year ago to a research project that Dr. Hemsley started when she was at a different institution in Arkansas. It'll be a continuation of that project. It's on Ewing sarcoma cancer, terrible cancer, has a terrible survival rate. And when we first met with Dr. Hemsley, she said, I want to be able to give the physicians fighting this disease another tool in their toolbox. And we're excited to allow her to continue that research. I'd also like to thank Dr. Gary Piazza from Auburn School of Pharmacy for being here. I've met with Dr. Piazza numerous times and Dean Leanne Ross about working with Auburn in the future, and we're excited about that opportunity. As I said, Sustainable is 100% owned by Alabama residents who I'll introduce today. We firmly believe education and research is a key to getting this industry started. We sincerely want to thank JSU and Auburn for being here. There are no hidden owners in our group, no side deals, no plans to sell. We have no MSO involvement, and we are against recreational marijuana. We're committed to moving this program forward with you, the Commission and staff, to get this needed medicine to the people of Alabama. Sustainable was started years ago by a lifelong friend of my family, Neil Pope. One day I was sitting in my office in Dothan, Alabama, my phone rang, and it was Mr. Pope on the other line. He asked me to come see him. Mr. Pope was one of those men, if they asked you to come see him, you didn't ask why. A couple of days later, I found myself in Salem, Alabama, meeting Ben Bramlett for the first time and following Mr. Pope around his farm. I had never seen anything like it. It had solar panels, battery banks, cannabis plants growing, a process facility, incredible processing plants where they could take CBD and turn it into all the products that we're going to turn into for medical cannabis. During the course of the tour, Mr. Pope started talking to me about the Hall Compassion Act. He talked about its favoritism for Alabama companies. He also talked about its fear of MSOs, and I learned what an MSO was. He started to talk to me about its concerns for recreational marijuana. The whole time I was wondering, like, why in the world is Mr. Pope telling me all this? Well, at the end of that conversation, Mr. Pope told me that he had cancer and he would never see this commission or a license. He told me that these MSOs had been courting him for months about his farm and wanting to partner with him. He said, Warren, if something happens to me, I'm afraid that they will not honor their agreement with Ms. Pope, who I've known my entire life. He said, given the law, given the Hall Compassion Act and its favoritism for Alabama companies, he said, we've got to find Alabama professionals that we can trust to carry my dream forward.
He said, I want you to help me find those people. He laid out the ideals of those people. He said, we need pharmacists, doctors, businessmen, accountants, and lawyers who can all collectively come together and form the perfect team in the spirit of the Hall Compassion Act to take his dream forward. He acknowledged that we needed agronomic experience per the Compassion Act. Unfortunately, Mr. Pope was right. We lost him in August of last year. However, at the last meeting at his house, when all of us were gathered, I can still remember Dr. Marnix Heersink saying, this just feels right. And with a handshake, Sustainable Alabama was formed. And we're honored to carry Mr. Pope's legacy and his dream forward today. I'd like to introduce you to our owners who are all from Alabama. First, Michael and Scott Delaney, who I've known since I was a kid. They are real estate developers from Mobile. They are key to our property acquisition team, and I'm honored to have them as owners of our company. I'd also like to introduce, as part of that team, John Miller, who's originally from Brewton, Alabama, lives in Birmingham, and is unfortunately has to deal with me as his brother-in-law. John is also a real estate developer, and between the three of them, they secured our 5 dispensary locations, which we still have under contract today. Next, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Sebastian and Marnix Heersink. I was fortunate enough to grow up 3 or 4 houses down from Dr. Heersink and his family. Back in those days, Dr. Heersink was the all-time quarterback in our backyard football games. He was not the guy who is famous for helping Alabama's medicine move forward that he is today, and I think we still think of each other in that regard. I was fortunate at a young age to be exposed to the Heersink value system. It's a little different than most value systems. They believe greatly in family, state, and their duty to their fellow citizen. Those are the same values that UAB saw when they named their medical school the UAB Heersink School of Medicine after Dr. Heersink. Dr. Heersink will address you today about the importance of ensuring doctors and pharmacists are involved in this program. He was integral in bringing Hudson Alpha to Dothan. He won't like to brag, and he won't tell you all the things that he does, but he quietly does things all over the state of Alabama, and he is very interested in helping this commission and our state get this program forward, and I'm excited that he's going to be able to tell you about it. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Chris Kelly. Chris and I graduated high school together. We live 4 doors down in Dothan, Alabama, raising our families together. Chris oversees his family business. They farm 4,000 acres of land in Hartford, Alabama, but Chris's main job is running Kelly Seed, which is a large agricultural seed distribution company that sells seed both all over the United States and internationally. There's not a one of you on this commission who hasn't eaten something that didn't start out as a seed at Kelly Seed. Joe Jones from Birmingham, played football at Samford University, where I went to school as well, is our head pharmacist. He is a lifelong Alabama resident and is now the largest independent pharmacy owner in the state of Alabama, and he'll be our head pharmacist. A lot of his pharmacies are located in sections of Alabama that are sort of rural, which I think is important. It's mentioned in the Act, and it's mentioned all through our application as one of the most important things that we believe we have to bring access to this medicine to other parts of the state. Part of that was adding Dr. John Jernigan to our ownership team. Dr. John Jernigan is one of these quiet heroes of Alabama. He's a primary care doctor here in Montgomery, Alabama, but he operates clinics throughout the Black Belt to help people who don't have access to medicine have access. We've added him to help us with that part of our business plan. You'll notice that one of our dispensaries is in Demopolis. The very reason we chose Demopolis is because it has limited access to medical care, and we think that's very important for this program. Next, we recognize we need an experienced attorney in highly regulated industry. And have Randy Dempsey as part of our ownership team. Randy has been specially appointed by every governor since Guy Hunt to run the ABC board. So when you talk about regulation in the state of Alabama, I think Randy Dempsey is at the top of the list. We also recognize that taxes and banking is a big deal for this industry. We had a friend, Jim Cunningham, who I've had a great time getting to know, who's here today, who will be our CFO. He's one of the founders of Warren Averett, one of the largest accounting firms in the Southeast, and was retired as its CEO. He helped us formulate our financial models in our application. Love to talk about our finances if y'all have any questions. Finally, and I think this commission knows, there are ethical concerns and ethical pitfalls facing this industry. We sought out Robert Holmes, who you'll hear from today, who I think is Alabama's leader in ethics. He was first African-American executive at Alabama Power and retired from there as the chief ethics officer. He'll address you today as well. I'd love for you to look at his bio. I can't repeat it because it's as long as my leg, but wonderful person to know, and we are so honored that he is a partner in our group. All of our owners are all from Alabama, and they're longtime Alabama residents, and they care about this state. Since being awarded, Sustainable hired Sterling Stoudemire, who you'll also hear about today, as our CEO. Sterling is an Alabama native and current Alabama resident. He ran a cannabis startup in Colorado from 2014 till he retired in 2021. And we are very fortunate that he has come on board with us to help us lead our business forward. He'll be speaking with you as well. I'm going to turn our presentation over to Ben Bramlett, who this commission knows well. He's been in almost every meeting since the program started. He also is an owner of Sustainable. I didn't highlight him because I felt like he'll talk, and y'all know him fairly well. He'll tell you about the farm's history and, more importantly, about our future. Thank y'all very much.
All right, just let me deal with some logistics here. One thing we said earlier, if one thing we have, I think we have the tallest group that's been around, so some adjustment needed. Commissioners, it's a pleasure to see you all again. In the close to, I think, 30 meetings I have attended with this commission, I believe I've met each and every one of you. But for the sake of formality, I'm Ben Bramlett. I'm a summa cum laude graduate of Auburn University's horticulture program. I'm an organic vegetable farmer. I'm an integrated hemp producer, and now the Chief Operating Officer at Sustainable Alabama. It's been a long and exciting journey getting to this point. I think I could probably say that for all of us, but I'm glad to have this opportunity to tell you about our experience and the work we've done to build a best-in-class medical cannabis company for this great state. So, Sustainable Alabama is built on the foundation of an operating integrated hemp facility, one that has seen substantial growth over the years. From this picture taken in 2012 to a large-scale integrated hemp production facility recognized by both state and federal institutions as a best-in-class producer of hemp-derived cannabis products. Oh, well, there we go. Dealing with the clicker. Mr. Pope and I set out to create this farm. We set out to create what was a model for sustainable agriculture. Our vision culminated with a 90-acre farm, 180,000 square foot protected culture production facility, 180 kilowatt solar array with battery backup, a 75-ton state-of-the-art geothermal HVAC system, a 6-acre irrigation reservoir, and a hemp processing facility with drying and climate-controlled storage. This facility will be the site of Sustainable Alabama's cultivation, processing, and secure transportation operation. For us, as a consumer-facing business working with patients every day, quality assurance is essential. Sustainable has the experience to bring a high-quality, safe, and reliable product to the patients of Alabama. Our farm has operated under the strict regulatory oversight of the USDA and the FDA. We've complied with the Food Safety Modernization Act, and we've implemented robust quality control procedures such as HACCP plans, seed-to-sale tracking systems, and protocols for mass recalls. We also carry both GAP, Good Agricultural Practice, and USDA organic certifications. We're no stranger to regulated enterprises, and we are more than prepared to meet and exceed the regulatory requirements of this program. Our farm has been inspected by state and federal agencies every year since I began managing operations in 2018. We have never been issued a citation by any of these agencies. Our products have been sold to thousands of consumers, and not once have we encountered an adverse event that would necessitate a recall. We will strive for the same track record of safety in the medical cannabis program. So how do we plan to do that? We're going to adhere to USDA and FDA standards of good agricultural, good quality, and good manufacturing practices. We'll institute a culture of compliance around these. We'll utilize an internal seed-to-sale tracking system and employ third-party testing of every product at each stage of production. Our Chief Science Officer, Carolyn Burek, and Manager of Processing and Extraction, Anshu Shrestha, have extensive experience in these quality control standards, with a cumulative 11 years operating biochemical research laboratories and 10 years designing and managing cannabis processing operations. We were issued one of the first integrated hemp production licenses in the state of Alabama, and we were the only USDA certified organic hemp farm in the state. We've spent the last 5 years building the procedures and knowledge base from right here in this state that will guide our medical cannabis operation. We went above and beyond the regulatory requirements of this program to ensure the quality of our products and the safety of our patients. We've always taken this business seriously, working every day to improve our operation and be the standard for the industry. Being an integrated producer, we understood the need for traceability through the supply chain. As such, for our medical cannabis operation, we have chosen Cannabis ERP as our internal seed-to-sale tracking system. This internal ERP system integrates directly with Metric, and it will ensure that our products are tracked throughout the cultivation and processing supply chain, averting contamination and diversion. In hemp production, we were known for our excellence in operations. We obtained yields at 80% above the national average, at 20% below the average cost per acre. We aim to do the same for medical cannabis, increase yields and lower cost, passing these savings along to the patient. We'll use many avenues to reduce the cost burden for patients, but efficient production is where it begins. We've been processing cannabis in the form of hemp in our CO2 extraction facility since our first year of operations, and our medical cannabis operation will utilize the very same processing technology. We've processed thousands of pounds of biomass in this, sold tens of thousands of products through both our own retail channels and our white labeling program, which supplied Alabama doctors and international nutraceutical companies. We understand this process, and we understand what is required to extract medical cannabis with a high level of efficiency and safety for our staff and the patients downstream. We have always worked cooperatively with other producers to ensure product made it to the people who needed it. And we built long-standing relationships with producers which are applying to be in this very same program. Starting this process, we reached out to other applicants to build upon these past relationships and to begin new ones. So we've secured letters of intent with applicants in every license category, all of which, except the integrated, of course, because that's Monday, were awarded a license last Friday. Now, this was done in a calculated manner. We intentionally avoided MSOs with ties to recreational marijuana and other companies that did not align with our core values. We've always been a trusted partner in every industry we've operated in, and we will do the same if given the opportunity to operate in Alabama's medical cannabis program. So when we began hemp in this state, it was a new industry, not dissimilar to medical cannabis. This industry needed science-based, peer-reviewed research. We needed regulations that were stringent but not burdensome, and outreach to disseminate information to producers and consumers. We worked with state and federal agencies and institutions to fulfill these needs. We've collaborated with Alabama State University and Auburn University on multiple research initiatives. We assisted the Alabama Cooperative Extension Service and the USDA in providing outreach and education programs. And we worked with the Alabama Department of Ag and Industries to craft regulations for the advancement of this industry. We were sought out for these programs and given this responsibility because we are a trusted producer with the expertise to lead this new industry. If awarded a license, we'll do the same for this Alabama medical cannabis industry. We've already begun this process with a signed letter of commitment with Jacksonville State University to conduct research and education. We said earlier, this funding will support Dr. Lori Hensley's research in a debilitating pediatric bone cancer known as Ewing sarcoma. With a survival rate of only 30% with conventional treatments, doctors need additional therapies to combat this disease. And Dr. Hensley's research has shown promise. We are honored to support the continuation of this research, and we hope we can turn this promising research into a promise of hope for these children. If I could leave you with one thought on this whole subject, history, and what we're going to do, is that we have done this, and we have done it right here in this state, and we are ready to do it for Alabama's medical cannabis program. So now I'd like to show you the future of our operation and what we'll build from this foundation. Jason, if you can cue the video. I've got a good IT man back there taking care of us. So what you see now is the future of sustainable. A 30,000 square foot greenhouse facility purpose-built for medical cannabis production, and an 18,000 square foot head house and processing facility for all the supporting infrastructure. We've taken a phased approach to construction to the site. We're going to start with 10,000 square foot of cultivation space. We're going to grow that to 30,000 square foot by 2025. This state-of-the-art greenhouse boasts 16-foot gutter heights, a positive pressure heating and cooling system, LED lighting, automated blackout and shade curtains, pest exclusion, and rolling benches. Our irrigation system you see here contains sediment, carbon, and UV filtration, providing clean water from our 6-acre reservoir. The Anderson injection system you see will inject a precisely measured nutrient solution into that water stream. All systems within this greenhouse are completely automated and controlled by one centralized control system to provide an optimal environment for year-round cannabis production. It's also built to be highly efficient for both energy and space utilization, allowing us to produce high-quality cannabis while reducing production costs, increasing yields, and correspondingly reducing downstream costs for the patient. Our cultivation system will utilize a soilless potting media, SunGrow Metro Mix 830, and 2-gallon containers with a constant liquid feed fertigation system, photoperiod manipulation, and control of temperature and humidity for year-round production. In just a second, I'm going to work with my IT guy. Jason, if you could pause about right there. Perfect. Our head house you see here contains all the supporting infrastructure to take our cannabis plants from harvest to a finished product. It's like drying facilities. We have a UL Class 1 storage vault, office space, and a 5,000 square foot processing facility. This facility is also designed to meet GMP specifications, wash-down rated stainless steel foam insulated walls, microbial resistant floors, a dedicated HVAC system, and segregation of processes from within the facility. Our method for processing will be the same we use for hemp production, one in which Sustainable Alabama already owns all the equipment and the associated intellectual property. The method we have chosen, supercritical and subcritical CO2 extraction, is due to its relative safety as compared to other extraction methods and the ability to retain vital active ingredients. So CO2 is a non-flammable, it's a non-carcinogenic solvent, and it's generally recognized as safe. It's also a very unique solvent because it can fractionate compounds from within the cannabis plant. By using this property, we can preserve the medically beneficial terpene compounds from the plant to the final product. Now, this facility is also a very secure facility. Our security advisor, Kevin Hill, he served the Tulsa PD for 21 years as a violent crime, narcotics, and homicide investigator, and was the national security director for both Harvest and True Leave. And then he brought his services to us to consult with us on this security plan. Using him, we developed very intricate security plans, including camera field of view maps, plans for access controls, entry-resistant exteriors and doors, security fencing, a 24-hour intrusion alarm with remote monitoring, reception rooms with panic and hold-up alarms, and network video recorders to back up all that security data. So Sustainable Alabama is ready to go, and we are ready to provide patients with the product they need. Working with trusted vendors and our Birmingham-based contractor, Rader McCary, we will be able to begin cultivation on March the 8th if issued a license on January the 9th. This is because we're transitioning an established production site to medical cannabis, one with supporting infrastructure already in place and building to the appropriate scale. Since the first award, we've taken many steps in doing so already. We shuttered the doors of our vegetable and hemp production operation. We donated hundreds of pounds of produce to local institutions. We demolished 2.5 acres of high tunnels and site prep, and we obtained the greenhouse shown in that video. I believe this shows our commitment to this project and how we acted quickly in a good faith effort with the Commission's original 2 award decisions to provide this medicine to the patients of Alabama. Sustainable Alabama plans to use the expertise of our ownership and management team to fully utilize our license authorization by operating robust, secure transportation and dispensing enterprise. Owners Chris Kelly and Joe Jones have extensive experience in the transportation of regulated goods. Mr. Jones' pharmacy business securely transports over $1 million in pharmaceutical drug inventory daily across 13 retail sites. 100 million of agricultural goods annually operating under the regulatory oversight of the USDA and the Department of Homeland Security. These guys know regulated transportation. In preparation for these operations, we've procured 2 secure transport vehicles already. We have contracts with 3 secure transport drivers, and we created all the supporting operating procedures to guide personnel within this enterprise. Sustainable Alabama expects to be a responsible and equitable dispenser of medical cannabis. We retain possessory interest in all 5 possible dispensing sites, which you can see here on this map. Each is strategically located throughout the state to maximize equitable access to cannabis. Owners Michael and Scott Delaney and John Miller will be a tremendous resource in getting these sites ready for dispensing. Their core business is retail site development, with 40+ stores built every year just like these, and over 3 million cumulative square feet of retail space built to date. They've committed to this project, and they've got the wheels turning already. Our dispensaries, so some on the internals of these, they'll utilize Dutchie point-of-sale software for tracking of all inventories, transactions, and patient information. Importantly, Dutchie complies with all HIPAA regulations, and they undergo annual audits to ensure the confidentiality of that patient information. Dispensary operations and internal compliance through both hardware and procedures will be instituted by Joe Jones. He owns and operates Mills Pharmacy, a chain of 13 private pharmacies here in Alabama, and the largest private pharmacy in the state. And our Chief Information Officer, Daryl Bilbray, he was the former Chief Architect and Planning Officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama. These dispensaries will offer card-based transactions, and they'll work with our Alabama Bank, Service First, reducing the burden that comes with cash-only transactions often seen in this industry. We have instituted plans for dispensary security through proper access controls, camera coverage, security staffing. We've got UL Class 1 vaults for cash and products in there, and proper procedures. To secure our products after they've left the dispensary, we've signed an exclusive agreement with FortisCap, which you can see here. This medicine bottle can only be opened using the fingerprint of the owner, ensuring that medical cannabis stays out of the hands of anyone but the patients. Sustainable Alabama has signed contracts with 3 certified dispensers, all of which are licensed pharmacists in Alabama to work in these dispensaries. Our partnership with ShareSafe Technologies allows for a direct line of communication between our patients and dispensers, and also acts as an educational hub for these patients, offering them personalized cannabis education content from the Johns Hopkins Immense Library. Our initial product selection will include tinctures, capsules, gelatinous cuboids, and topical creams. The projected cost for each product is 15 cents per milligram of THC, and that's regardless of form factor. From what we've seen, this is 20% less than the industry standards. So in conclusion here, I know y'all have heard enough from me. I've been growing, processing, and distributing hemp-derived cannabis products successfully in this state since the very start of that program. I'm ready to do the same with medical cannabis. And to that, I'd like to introduce Sterling Stoudemire, the CEO of Sustainable Alabama.
I'm the token short guy, I guess. I'd like to thank Ben for that. Ben is the heart and soul of Sustainable, and his commitment and his horticultural knowledge is really amazing. It's something I wish I'd had in previous lives. I'm Sterling Stoudenmeyer. I'm originally from Union Springs, Alabama. I spent 13 years with Anderson and Accenture. I guess I should put this slide up. Doing consulting in a lot of different industries, including manufacturing, distribution, pharmaceuticals, and a bunch of others. In 2014, a family office asked me to go to Colorado and manage their investment in a vertically integrated cannabis startup, and I went out there in 2014 to do that. More on that in a minute. 7 years later, in 2021, I was able finally to come back home. I retired from a thriving business and was able to get back to Alabama and came to Fairhope, Alabama to retire. I live in Fairhope. I've continued to do some advisory work for cannabis companies in Michigan, in Missouri, and Massachusetts, as well as a little bit in Texas and Oklahoma, but mostly those. And the passage of the Hall Compassion Act is a pretty welcome development for me, certainly unexpected, that gave me an opportunity to bring that knowledge that I gained from being in this industry for 8 years at the front lines to my home state, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to do that. What's really more exciting to me is the sincere vision, the tremendous resources, and the amazing people that Sustainable has assembled for this. I don't think I've ever seen a group of people that's quite that impressive in a startup situation. So, as the CEO of Pure Greens, what began as a cultivation license with a 10,000 square foot food service distribution center, so an old warehouse basically, we grew that into a whole lot more over the course of the coming 7 years. When I left, we were the largest greenhouse producer in the state of Colorado. We had about 100,000 square feet of fully automated greenhouse. We were producing about 20,000 pounds of flower a year out of there. We were operating 7 dispensaries. We had dozens of product lines and hundreds of SKUs. We were distributing 6 brands to more than 150 dispensaries around the state, and we did all that with our own in-house secure transport fleet. During my time as the CEO of Pure Greens, we had 0 compliance violations. We also had 0 product recalls, 0 security losses, and 0 diversionary losses, something we were incredibly proud of. One of the things we did there early on was to develop the platform, the software platform we would need to actually be able to scale this business, and we were very much pioneers in this. We helped develop a proprietary ERP system that's known as Cannabis ERP, working with a systems integrator on an existing ERP platform. And that industry solution is very specific to the industry, is now in use at more than 60 cannabis countries around the world, including, I think, 6 or so of the MSOs that are using it, something we're very proud of. Now, we're going to use that same software here, that same system, and it's very comprehensive, does everything. So seamless integration with Metric for all the seed to sale trackability, lot traceability, which allows for full lot, any kind of recall. It was originally a system designed, Sage X3 was, for food service companies and nutraceutical companies. Recall management, and of course the usual suspects, financials, manufacturing, distribution, and inventory management, which is, if you've ever audited anybody in the cannabis industry, inventory is the #1 concern. I was ultimately involved in every detail of designing and building that facility and scaling the enterprise. And on an annualized basis, we were harvesting 125,000 plants a year, producing, as I said before, about 20,000 pounds a year of flower. We did CO2, ethanol, and butane extraction, so we kind of rounded that corner and did them all. And we processed more than 400 kilos of concentrates, per year. Proud of my experience in Colorado, but I'm really eager to have the opportunity to take that and bring it here with the commitment of this team. So there's some lessons that we learned, and I think that those are things that really need to guide some of the commitments that we make going forward. The first of these is that compliance. Compliance has got to be a cultural thing. And compliance is everyone's job, all the time. It's not just the lawyers, it's not just the compliance department, it's everyone. And the owners you see here have spent their careers in heavily regulated industries, medicine, pharmaceuticals, public utilities, law, and alcohol control. We're confident in our ability to operate this business in strict compliance with the regulations and even contribute to the regulations. We're committed to providing careers, not just jobs. This is really critical to me. We want to ensure that we have the best workforce in the industry. We've developed university partnerships with Auburn University to create a cultivation internship. and with Jacksonville State to develop a pharmaceutical and processing internship, and you've heard about those earlier. We're committed to patient care. Doctors, patients, and caregivers all need information. There's a lot of misinformation in this industry. We want to lead the charge in educating the doctors, the patients, and the caregivers on medical cannabis. And we're going to assist the doctors and the patients in making informed decisions, and Dr. Hirschig's going to talk about that in a minute. We're committed to partnering with Alabama institutions to support ongoing research. We're very Alabama-centric. We already have our research partnership in place with JSU, and we're in discussions with Auburn School of Pharmacy. I think you heard about that earlier. We are absolutely committed to the idea that cannabis is, as yet, an untapped cornucopia of pharmaceutical opportunity. But without federal research and without federal university support, that's been something that's hard to come by. We're committed to continuing to do that and to grow that. It's still a nascent industry. It's operating at a really rapid pace. I used to joke that living in this industry is like living in dog years because it moves so fast. Cultivation's kind of growing up, and it's starting to gravitate towards more traditional horticulture techniques. The same with some of the processing, manufacturing, and especially like labeling things. So there are a number of things that are getting better, but there's still a lot of things that we need to improve in the industry, and we're going to continue to see that growth. Our goal is to be able to create cutting-edge pharmaceutical technologies that allow greater precision, that allow safety and scalability. And I truly believe Sustainable is best positioned to do that with the vast array of talent in the ownership group. Finally, we're committed to transparency, and something I've learned as a CEO is that you report to everyone. As a CEO, I'm accountable to the regulators to ensure compliance, cooperation, and continuous improvement, to our patients to consistently deliver high-quality medicine at a fair price, to our owners to execute the strategy and be faithful to it, to our community to improve the communities we operate in, whether that's as a production facility or as a dispensary, and our employees to provide fair compensation, benefits, and a career path. You've already heard from our COO, Brent Bramlett. I'd like to spot a couple of people here on our management team. The first is our Director of Security. This is Larry Girardi. Larry's an addition to our team subsequent to the application. I asked Larry to join us today. I noticed he went over there and sat against the wall, so he's strategically positioned without his back to the door. That's a very Larry-like thing to do. Larry has worked in law enforcement, corrections, and security for more than 25 years. With the state of Florida, he was a member of the Drug Interdiction and Canine Team. He was a maximum security transport specialist, Florida Law Enforcement Officer of the Year, and he was a winner of the award of a Correctional Officer of the Year for bravery and heroism in the line of duty. And I can vouch for the fact that Larry's a very brave guy. In the licensed cannabis industry in Colorado, for us, Larry provided all of our on-site security 24/7 for 7 facilities, including our 26-acre production campus, monitoring more than 250 cameras. He also did all of our secure transport operations, so everything related to metric, manifest, tracking, transactional, secure transport of product and cash, logistics, fleet management, fleet maintenance, SOP developments and implementation, and he even did some secure transport for financial institutions that we did business with. Larry's excited to be with us in Alabama, and he's already moved his family to Lee County, and I am proud to say that during Larry's tenure, we had no security issues, we had no compliance violations, we had no security losses. I would trust my life to Larry. Next person I'd like to talk about, and Ben mentioned earlier, is Anshu Shretha. And I still can't ever say her name correctly. Drives me crazy. But our processing facility is going to use CO2 extraction. We're going to utilize advanced techniques in not just extraction, but also distillation, packaging, and labeling. I don't think most people who haven't been in this industry have an appreciation for just how complicated labeling is in this industry, but it is a very, very difficult thing. Requires a lot of precision. Anshu's going to be our processing and manufacturing manager. She has pretty good chops relative to the people I've seen in the industry. She is head and shoulders ahead of most of them. BS in microbiology, a master's in plant science. She's worked as a research scientist at Auburn University, and she's been in the cannabis industry for the last 3 years. She was with Sustainable CBD. She's still been in the cannabis industry since that time, and she's going to come back and rejoin us. We're excited to have her with us. In closing, I want to talk about the fact that, having lived this at the point of the spear, when I got there, I knew nothing about cannabis. I was not, still am not, a cannabis user. And so for me, it was quite the learning curve. It's a complicated industry. It requires really substantial responsibility for all kinds of things in a regulatory standpoint, and that's why it's got to be part of the culture in every employee every day. But it also requires a lot of capital, requires a lot of expertise, and an unwavering commitment to the long game, because it is a long game. I've done this before, as you've seen here. I'm eager to do it again. I'm really excited that we would have the opportunity to do it in my home state. So I'd like to introduce you now to one of our owners, Dr. Marnix Heersink. He's going to talk to you some more about values and commitment, and please welcome Dr. Heersink.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Marnix Heersink. It's a privilege and honor to be here with you today. Thank you for letting me come. My wife and I have lived in Dothan for 45 years. I'm an active practicing physician, and my wife and I have 6 children. All of them are graduates from medical school and dental school. They're in the healthcare profession, and our whole family is committed to education, healthcare, and serving others. That's our basis. That's part of our values and our commitment. I hope to show our values and commitment are important for our application. I took an oath in medical school, the Hippocratic Oath, and that was to benefit the sick and take care of the sick, and to follow the rule of primum non nocere, first do no harm. And I still believe in that. It's very important. It's also important not only for me, but for our group. We are committed to doing that. So let me start by saying we do not, as a group, support recreational use of cannabis. In fact, we strongly oppose it. One of my roles in the company is to point out how important it is to ensure that our citizens get reliable information and quality, safe product. How do we do that? I want to show 10 slides that show steps that we, Sustainable Alabama, are committed to, showing that medical cannabis in the state of Alabama will be a positive for our citizens by providing education, research, clinical guidelines, clarity for regulatory and legal guidelines, the need for collaboration with medical schools and associations, patient education, and accessibility and affordability to ensure the safety and appropriate use of cannabis. So, first of all, I think we would all agree, education is fundamental, and that would include developing comprehensive educational programs for healthcare providers. We strongly believe that's so important. If we don't do that, I'm very concerned that we are going to run into a very difficult time. Our healthcare providers have to be educated so they understand what they are getting involved with. And I'm not sure that's where we are yet, but it's going to need to have to be addressed and be done. If we don't educate them, we're going to then also put our patients at risk and potentially even put the entire program at risk. Education is very, very important in this process. So, promoting and funding research on the efficacy of medical cannabis will help ensure the appropriate use of medical cannabis. We have very good relationships, as you've heard, with Jacksonville State University, Auburn University, and University of Alabama in Birmingham, and several other institutions. And we know that demonstrating that today, for example, President Killingsworth and Dr. Hensley, as Dr. Piazza, are with us here today, and we thank them. We know that there are going to be some very more wonderful uses for medical cannabis, but we need to do the research and fund it, and that's going to be a critical part of the development of the program. So we now want to establish clear clinical guidelines for medical cannabis use. I think that the practitioners who are going to be prescribing it, as I mentioned before, they need to really understand more about medical cannabis, its pros and cons, so that they can speak with their patients and tell them things that they need to understand and be aware of. So I think part of it is that we need to ensure that practical recommendations for things like dosaging, administration, and monitoring are all necessary for this. This is where the Commission and all of you have the great opportunity to find the right entities and people to carry out the mission for the state of Alabama. And we thank you for the opportunity to give us our thoughts and our plans. For healthcare providers, it will be necessary to clarify regulatory procedures, very important. I am committed to fostering collaboration with medical associations. I'm a member of the American Medical Association, the Alabama College of Medicine, the Houston County College, Medical Society, and I have colleagues on these boards that I'm very much in touch with. And an important part of it is that we need to get consensus statements from these organizations. If that doesn't happen, then I'm afraid we're not going to be able to get the kind of progress that we need to develop and get. Another important aspect is patient education. We need to educate patients on medical cannabis. And part of that is not just the information, but also to educate and to understand that there's a stigma against medical cannabis at this point. I think patients don't quite understand it, and sometimes, honestly, I think they go to their doctor with the concept that cannabis, that word, I don't think I really need to get involved in any of that. And I think patients now need to deserve the opportunity to hear more about that, because they'll then have less stigma attached to it if we can educate them on that. And we need to encourage patients to discuss this with their doctor. And in fact, we also need to encourage the dialogue between the patient and the doctor. That's an important part of things. So peer-to-peer sharing, which is another aspect I wanted to address, is we already know, and I'm involved in a lot of peer-to-peer discussions, we already know that it's a very difficult and a steep hill to climb. Medical practitioners that I speak to, a lot of them are very cautious, maybe because they don't understand, they don't really know what's happening. That's one of the things that I will commit to, is that our peer-to-peer discussions and our opportunity to educate our colleagues is very, very important in order to make the program successful. We need to have discussions on how to integrate medical cannabis into treatment plans, and should be encouraged. Many of our, and I'll slide on, many of our higher education professional schools have committed to including medical cannabis education in their curriculum, including Auburn, Jacksonville State, and UAB. I've had great conversations with the Dean of Medicine at UAB, as well as the other medical schools, and opportunities to ensure that they're going to include this in their curriculum. And they've reassured me of that. In fact, they've given me permission to tell all of you that the medical schools are going to commit to educating undergraduate and graduate students to learn a lot more about medical cannabis and how they can make sure their students are fully aware of that and be educated on it. We also have in Dothan our ACOM, our College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I do feel that it should be included in all medical schools for education as well, including osteopathic schools. So I think the latest research and guidelines should be shared and updated. So I'm also going to advocate that we take a look and try to get insurance coverage for medical cannabis where applicable. I think that in order to make it successful, we need to have a financially viable opportunity for patients and healthcare providers to take benefits and make sure that they get the results that they deserve.
Dr. Hirsink, how much longer do you think you have on your presentation?
I'm so sorry. I'm down to about 2 slides.
Okay.
In fact, I can make it 1 slide. So let me just close. I was going to save this to the last, but let me tell you a little medical story that is really a true story, and it's about where I think patients could start to benefit. I have a patient in my practice who I've been following for years for glaucoma. Those of you who know glaucoma know it's a very devastating, blinding disease. She's a 45-year-old female, single mom, African-American, who comes to me regularly for treatment. She says to me, she says, okay, I'm having to use drops. I'm having to do all this. Is there something that's coming on the horizon for me so I can have a better result, better use? And I say to her, yes, we have really good research. We're very close to being able to tell you that we have some new ways of addressing this using medical cannabis. She was very elated to hear that. It's still a promise, but I'm telling you that with research and with time and funding, we're going to have medical breakthroughs we can't even imagine. So this is a good example for me on a personal level to know that we can help patients by continuing the funding and to make sure that we do the research and do it with all of us in mind for the betterment of the patient. That's really a very important message. Well, I know I've run out of time a little bit, but so thank you all for letting me explain what I think Sustainable Alabama stands for and for allowing me to share my role. We're eager for the work ahead. We're ready to go. And up next, you'll hear from Mr. Robert Holmes, Sustainable Alabama's Chief Ethics Officer. Thank you.
How long do you think Mr. Holmes will require? Come on up and give us a couple of minutes, and we need to have some question and answer time.
Exactly what I had planned to do.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am elated to be a part of this group. My name is Robert Holmes. I was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, and I am an equity owner. I had the opportunity to work as Chief Ethics Officer of Alabama Power, a vertically integrated business, much like the cannabis business. Let me just be more succinct. We have values and we are driven by so many other things. There are a lot of folk can do this. It's evident, you've heard it. Many people can do that, but how many of them can do it right? We are prepared to do it right. We are the ones that you can trust. Sustainable will do it right, and we'll do it for the right reason. We believe at the heart of our corporation, we are good corporate citizens. That to us means corporate social responsibility. We recognize that we have the responsibility to do more than simply maximize our profit. Rather, we have a social responsibility to do what is best, not just for the company, but for the people, for the environment, the community, and the state of Alabama. Corporate social responsibility really looks like this: funding research at universities, training and developing workforce for our industry, specifically at the Alabama Community College level, improving the equality of our environment, and finally, ensuring that our employees act ethically and socially responsible. Now, you've heard our presentation. As we went a little bit more than we should have, we are respectfully asking that you give us a license so we can go to work. We're ready now.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I don't think you need that microphone. Okay, now we've got some time for question and answers from commissioners. Anyone want to start off? Yes, Mr. Dwight Gamble.
Excellent presentation. Thank y'all for being here today. I would like to know how much and your investment is right now in the hemp production.
Yeah.
Dollar-wise.
I can take that. So our investment in the hemp production at this point, and when I say hemp production, thank you, we're really looking at vegetable production, our cultivation side of hemp, processing, all the supporting, et cetera, everything on that farm. We're at over $3.5 million.
Yeah. So my point, my question is, how much of that can be moved over into the cannabis production that you've already have invested in, to date? And
yeah, I mean, we're looking at the vast majority of that. The processing equipment we're going to use is the same. All the electrical infrastructure that's on that farm is going to be the exact same. Those solar panels I showed up there, they're not just for show and fun and to spend money on them. They're going to power the first two pieces of that greenhouse operation. So when everybody else is drawing power from the grid and putting a hurt on these indoor facilities, we'll be using our solar panels to supplement that. But yes, vast majority.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Something that, Ben, you might can address is the secure transporters, those drivers that y'all have. Mm-hmm. Will they work exclusively for Sustainable, or will they be driving for other companies as well? Do you know yet?
This is one of our secure transport man. Let him handle it.
Okay.
My law partner was the chief of police in Dothan for 12 years. His son is a fire medic. And what we've done is I've gotten with his son and a group of their friends who are all fire medics. They work 24 on, 48 off, and we'll devise a system when they're off, they'll come and run our routes for us. And so, yes, the ones that we've already signed are dedicated just to us. And I've known them, friends of mine. I think we sort of lost that in the application. Didn't highlight the fact that they're all fire medics from Dothan, Alabama, and we've known them very well.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. That's good to know. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr.
Chairman,
Harwell.
Question for Ben.
Yes.
Great presentation to all of y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've heard me ask before, do you have any concerns growing in a greenhouse?
Oh, yeah, this has been the key topic, hasn't it? No,
It's a
sir.
concern of mine.
No, and I understand. I'm glad you asked the question. I think I wanted the opportunity to clarify this because I've been here, I've watched these, I've seen it. No, we do not have any concern. I've heard some of the comments that were made that it's impossible. You got to grow in this indoor structure. I just don't think that's the case. I'll give you a couple of examples, and I'll give you a pretty concrete answer right here at the end of it. So I think first what it takes is an understanding of agriculture and horticulture in our environment, in our region, in our state's biome. I've heard the mention of botrytis a couple times as the bud rot pathogen they're talking about that you can't keep out unless you're indoors. They're referring to something called botrytis cinerea. It's the same thing that causes gray mold on something like strawberries. So if you ever left that container in your fridge for too long and you got that gray fluffy stuff, most likely botrytis. That disease grows between 70 and 77 degrees. How often is it between 70 and 77 degrees in the state of Alabama? Because I heard temperature was the problem, right? It's not the case. So when we were in hemp, it's the same plant. It's Cannabis sativa, same species. We worked with Auburn a ton in their pathogen testing laboratory. So they would go out and test these plants for what pathogens were on them. They didn't find botrytis cinerea. They found a disease called Fusarium oxysporum, completely different disease. So if you're trying to treat botrytis and you got Fusarium, it's like going to the doctor and he thinks you have one disease he's treating, but you actually have something different. So what it takes is a local understanding of this, understanding our biome and our region. And so on this, I said, I don't need to just take my own, what I'm thinking it is. I need to reach out to some professionals. So we reached out to our favorite school, Auburn University, War Eagle, and we talked to some of their leadership yesterday. And they said, listen, we went and toured facilities in Florida in this medical state that are doing it in greenhouses. They control the environment in there. They have proper IPM programs to manage and monitor that. And they're doing it. This is not an impossibility. So we feel completely comfortable doing that. And I think it's because of our experience that we can do that.
One last question.
Yes.
Why did you decide on a 16-foot side walls?
Oh, that's a good point too. So this is key. And it has a lot to do with disease management. So the way our positive pressure greenhouse works, if you can imagine these rows of benches with expanded metal mesh on them, they've got tubes, convection tubes that go up under them that push air up under those plants. Every bench has its own tube. So if you can imagine when those tubes are turned on, it's pushing that air up through the canopy. And with a 16-foot sidewall, what we get to do is get what they call these inversion layers. Same way heat rises, cold settles, we get to push that dehumidified, cool air through the canopy and push that hot, humidified air up above that 16-foot. So we're able to control that close environment at the plant canopy and push all that other stuff up above that sidewall. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mr. Harwell. Anybody else? Another commissioner have a question?
I have one.
Yes, sir, Dr. Jensen.
Will your process be CGMP certified?
So per the regulations, we will be GMP certified through the state. I believe the regulations say that this commission and the state will regulate that GMP certification because you get into a tricky spot with cannabis. GMP regulations are FDA. The FDA does not recognize medical cannabis. So anyway, yes, we will be. We've already built the facility to be for that. We'll just do it under y'all's regulatory environment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Anyone else have a question before we dismiss?
Chairman?
Yes, who's speaking?
Dr. Harvey.
Dr. Harvey, go ahead.
First, I'd like to say that's an excellent presentation. And secondly, I'd like to thank Dr. Hersink for everything he and his family have done at UAB and for moving medicine along. But also want to thank him for his vision, because I think the other commissioner heard me say, we are needing to move medical cannabis forward in terms of research into what it does. And the FDA has held back the movement. And just the vision that I hear Dr. Hersink talking about is one of the brightest lights I've seen shown on this problem in the time I've been on the commission. So thank you very much for what you've done, and thank you very much for what you propose to do.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. He heard you well. Anybody else have a question or a comment?
I just have a brief question.
Go ahead, Dr. Blakemore.
Can you guys? But yeah, first off, excellent presentation. Really enjoyed it. Second off, could you guys briefly discuss the dress, appearance, and professionalism of some of your dispensary staff, or what you're going to have in place for customer service? I really want to see people in the dispensaries, have that old school service. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. So just wanted to know if you could speak to that.
Come to the microphone, please, sir.
Thank you. That is a really great question and comment. I'm exactly of the same mindset. If a patient comes to see us, I think we owe them not only the service, but we owe them the dignity and the opportunity to have us look professional, act professional, be professional. It's really critical. I like people to come to us as doctors or pharmacists and say, I'm looking up to you for guidance. And I don't want to hear bad stuff or stuff that you hear on social network. There's so much misinformation out there. People get confused. So they come to a professional. And if they have an opportunity to meet with a professional who looks like they're really interested and has a professional decorum, I think it makes a big difference in people's mindset. And I think that's the way we feel in our practice of medicine. And I think all pharmacists that are of the same mindset would feel the same way. So my comment is, yes, I reinforce that thought.
Thank you, Dr. Hairsink. Anyone else have a question or a comment? We'd like to thank all the folks with Sustainable Alabama. And Mr. Holmes, I'm glad we had time to squeeze you in there.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for your presentation, and we'll make ready for RX Connection to go next. So thank all of you for joining us today.
Saying if it works, it does work. I don't know. I forgot which number, but let's get it. Great job.
Hey, Mr. Hunt. Joey at Wagon Trail. Good morning. He is an individual I admire immensely. He is one of the apples. Thank you. Oh, he is. Y'all deserve it.
Hey guys, Mike.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Our presenters scheduled for today, FFD Alabama Holdings, also an LLC, was planning to present today, but had to back out at the last minute for a conflict of time frame, so they did not present, but they still will be considered for a license. So they were scheduled for 9:30. So we're kind of back on schedule. So we've got RX Connection and LLC, and I'll ask Mr. Justin Aday to make a few comments pertaining to their application for the benefit of our commission members. So Justin.
This is applicant number 1677, RX Connection LLC. You have their complete application and applicant summary. You also have a written brief that was submitted in support of the application. There were pass-fail items noted in the application. The applicant was sent a pass-fail show cause notice and provided response to that notice, and that's included in your materials as well.
Thank you, Justin. So we'll have RX Connection. I guess Mr. Troy King, you want to kick them off, and just Ms. Peters will have the time frame allotment on her laptop displayed on the counter here. So keep in mind of that as we move to the presentation.
Yes, sir.
And I'll ask you or your presenters, if you come up, you can either introduce them or let them introduce themselves for the benefit of our reporter. She can keep track of that. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be here. I see you've queued up our video, which we're very proud of. Maybe that'd be a good way for me to start things and introduce ourselves to you. Also, I don't know how we make it. I don't know how to make it.
I grew up in the heart of Alabama's wiregrass. And I saw firsthand there what happens when neighbors help neighbors. I was taught that that isn't just something you talk about in Sunday school. It's something that you do every day. Over the next 50 years, I came to know all of Alabama. And like my hometown of Elba, when I visited Northeast Alabama, I found another place that had seen the jobs dry up. I met people like those back home who had to leave home, if not Alabama altogether, to find careers and a future. And I swore that if I ever had the chance, I would do something about it. Maybe that's why, unlike others, RX Connection didn't put its roots down in the big cities where there are already plenty of jobs. But we went to a place where we could administer a prescription, not just for those who take our medicine, but for those who will take our jobs. I've been proud to be involved with RX Connection, a company made up of people just like those I grew up with, mamas and daddies, brothers and sisters. Alabama values run through our veins. And one of those values is that it's a sin to have the ability to help others and to refuse to do so. RX Connection was born from that need to help. Our company is committed to the task of making medicine that can provide life-changing pain relief without the terrible side effects of the scourge of opioids. Standing behind our application is a generations-old Alabama family farmer who has tilled the dirt, grown the crops, and raised the cows just a stone's throw from where I grew up. We're scientists, engineers, and state-of-the-art technology. Given the chance, we'll show the rest of Alabama what it looks like when neighbors truly help neighbors, as we bring 150 high-paying jobs, millions of dollars of economic impact, and immeasurable improvements to the quality of life of thousands of Alabamians. We will harness the expertise of specialists who have an unrivaled commitment to Alabama and this mission. RX Connection, the prescription for what ails Alabama.
My goodness, that's a persuasive guy if I ever heard one. Thank you all again for allowing us to be here. Let me introduce the folks I've got with me, and then I want to provide a little bit of context, and then I'm going to let them come and speak to you as well. I have Andy Sumblin is referenced in the video. He's a longtime farmer from down in southeast Alabama, farms corn, peanuts, cows. Next to him is Brad Presnell, who's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. He's worked with elected officials and grassroots efforts across not just Alabama, but across the country for the last 30 years and has been a community liaison for us. And then Brady Cobb, who is here, is with High End Holdings, who is our experienced partner who has a lot of experience in a regulated market like Florida. And we feel very, very fortunate that we have somebody like him here. We have responded to the pass-fail already in writing, but I want to say something about it publicly because I think it's that important to me that our name be clear. There was a pass-fail that was entered regarding whether one of the members of our ownership team was a convicted felon. And I want to say to you that we do not have a member of our ownership team who is a convicted felon. We have not ever had anyone in our ownership team who is a convicted felon, and we will not ever have that. We did have a small minority owner who pled guilty to a felony. When we submitted our application, he had not pled guilty. We attempted to update our application and the portal was closed. He resigned prior to pleading guilty and we stripped him of any ownership interest that he had in the company. We then asked the commission for a variance, which we thought would be the correct way to correct the record so that it would be in front of you that he was no longer even a 2.5% owner, and to alert you of that change having been made. When we got the variance, though, even though in other states a variance would be the proper vehicle to go in and change an application, a variance in Alabama is really a request for an exception or an exemption. That was not what we attempted to do. We do not want to be treated differently. We did not want to not comply with the law. We wanted you to be aware that we had complied with the law. So we did not complete a variance, but we have tried multiple times to ensure that the commission is aware that every step that we could legally and possibly take was taken to maintain that to ensure that the ownership of RX Connection was never tainted in any way. And it's important to me that you hear it directly from me, not just from a piece of paper or something that I signed. It's that important to us. We don't want to barely skate past the law. We want to scrupulously exceed whatever qualifications and requirements the law puts in place. Now, on to the reason that we're here. I debated for a long time. I've been watching your hearings online, and I debated for a long time about what might be the best thing I could do after watching some of what's gone on here. And I thought maybe I should just bring a fairy tale that would be as fanciful as some of the things that I've heard people say since they came to talk to y'all. Many of the people who have stood here have said things to you that are demonstrably and clearly a fairy tale. They're just false. They're not true. When people tell you, so I brought a book called No Way. When they come and they tell you they have $500 or $700 million of idle capital that's just sitting in a bank waiting to be deployed, I can tell you, no way. There's no way that that is a correct statement, that that's a true statement. When they tell you that they're dedicated to medicinal grow only, no way. I can tell you that people who have stood in front of you not only are not committed to medicinal grow only, some of them, as recently as October, made a $500,000 contribution to the state of Florida to expand into recreational use in Florida, which capped off an over $40 million investment that they have made in trying to expand the accessibility and the use of cannabis in the state of Florida. People come before you and they say they have the most qualified teams and they're the most qualified people committed to Alabama. No way. I hate to say it, but that's just not true. There are people who have been in other states where they have pulled out because finances got tough. That left regulators who believed them on the hook. That left patients who were depending on them without relief, and that left communities where they made promises left behind with nothing to show for it. Now, if they'll pull out of states like Colorado because times got tough, what do you think they'll do in Alabama? We're here with deep Alabama roots, and we're not going anywhere. So while it seems to me maybe enough people have come here and spun tales and wasted your time, I've come here with our team today to tell you the truth about who we are, the truth about how we got here, the truth about what we're going to do. Now, I have to confess, I used to have a chair on that side of the desk, and I wouldn't trade places with you for anything because you have a very short amount of time within which you've got to sort through a lot of information. And you're going to do it under the tightest deadlines. You're going to do it under the brightest glare of the brightest spotlight of public scrutiny that you can imagine. And when you get through, if you get it wrong, you're going to leave a lot of people in desperate need of help who thought they were going to get help. So there may be people who have sued you, but they're not the people this law was written for. This law was written to provide relief to Alabamians who have chronic pain and want to avoid the scourge of opioids and other problematic drugs. One of those people I want to tell you about is a friend of mine. His name is Nick Weldon. You may recognize his name. He's the sheriff of DeKalb County. If you don't know who he is, and if you have a discouraging day and you think, is this really worth it? Is it really worth being beat up in the newspapers? Is it really worth getting sued? Is it really worth having people say ugly things about me? I would encourage you to go online and watch Nick Weldon's story, because I think he will convince you that it is absolutely worth it. Nick was a narcotics agent when he first started, and Nick told me that he was against all drugs. He thought they were all bad. They were corrupting. They hurt people. They destroyed communities. And then Nick had a daughter who began to have grand mal seizures, 50 a day. Nick tells the story about laying on top of his daughter and restraining her so she doesn't choke on her own tongue. He talks about her looking out the window and seeing the other kids down the street go and play and not being able to go join them. And then he talks about the discovery of medical cannabis. He said, I believed that God put everything on the earth for a good purpose. I now know what the good purpose of medical cannabis is. It's to deliver a childhood back to a little girl who didn't have one. Nick came and spoke at a town hall meeting that we had on May the 2nd. There's a YouTube FaceTime video of it. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go let Nick speak for himself, not for RX Connection, but for the good work that you're doing, because I think you will find it encouraging and I think you'll find it refreshing. I'd like to talk about one particular component of this before we move to the operational side that Brady's going to come talk about. In 2021, of course, when this legislation was passed, the legislature specifically talked about the relief of pain, the relief of debilitating illnesses, but they also talked about the need for this law to generate the ancillary benefits of providing jobs, providing employment, providing business opportunities. Now, I grew up in Elba, but I feel like Alabama is my hometown. I've served in statewide office and I've traveled all over Alabama. I remembered a place that a lot of people forgot up in Northeast Alabama. And I had spent a lot of time up and around Fort Payne and DeKalb County and Jackson County, and I'd gotten to know the people. And so when we began thinking, where would we go and put down roots? Oh, sure, we could have gone to the big cities. But instead, we went back up where they had been socked in the mouth by NAFTA. They watched the sock mills and the hosiery mills go away. They watched their state government really forget about them. We went back up there, and what we really found were people who want to make a difference and people who want to do good. People who have been racked by chronic unemployment, by sparse opportunity, by economic hopelessness, who thought they had been completely forgotten. As we went up there, I believe we have more engagement than probably anybody you've met. We did town hall meetings. We went to the city council meeting. We wandered up and down the streets, and we met people on the streets. We invited people to come in and ask us the hard questions. And at the end of the day, we left Henniger, we left Fort Payne, we left Northeast Alabama, not as a stranger, but we left feeling like we were neighbors. They told us about what NAFTA did to their community. They told us how hard it was to see people not get up and go across town for a job, but go across state lines. We sat and watched people in the morning as they left not just Fort Payne or Northeast Alabama, but Alabama to go find jobs. We listened to people talk about how hard it was to see their kids have to leave Alabama to find opportunities and an ability to have a future. All of those meetings, all of those conversations ultimately resulted in a unanimous invitation from the Henniger City Council for RX Connection to put down its roots there, to come and let them help not just provide medicine for what ails sick Alabamians, but to provide help for what ails sick Northeast Alabama, a lack of jobs and opportunity. We've committed to them. In fact, we committed to them as recently as Monday. I don't know if there's a way I can submit something to you. I referenced it in the brief, but I have the unanimous recommitment resolution passed by the town of Henniger. Is there a way can I just hand this to y'all? I think it shows better than anything I can say the level of commitment that we have to Alabama and they have to us. We've been to the community college there. We've talked to them about job training programs. We've talked about how we can enlist and become a good neighbor and create good paying, not jobs, good paying careers that will transform that part of the state. And all of that will be done while we provide life-altering medicines and life-altering life choices to people all across Alabama. Look, we believe that our experience is unmatched. I believe our partners are unmatched in their experience and the depth of what they've done. I believe you're going to be as impressed with them as we are and the people of Northeast Alabama are. We have enough confidence that we haven't thought we have to sue anybody over what kind of drink you drink or whatever decisions you've made. We have had trust in and confidence in the process throughout, and we're here today. We believe processes work. We believe processes are important. So with that, I'm going to yield the floor to Brady Cobb so that we have time left for any questions that y'all may have. But I want to thank you again for allowing us to be here. I want to thank you for this opportunity. And mostly, I want to thank you for the personal sacrifice that you've made to see this process through to the end. Brady?
Hard to follow that, but Brady Cobb, it's a pleasure to be in front of you. And I do want to echo something Troy said as I start. And I've worked on licensing in this emerging cannabis industry across the United States for a number of years. And while it may feel like this is not fun, and this is the hard part, and I know this has not been fun, start, stop, new commission, old commission, lawsuits, it's not fun. But the work you're doing is going to really help people in the community, and I've seen it firsthand for a long time, starting with my father, who passed away in 2010 from bone cancer. And at the end of his life, being prescribed, which bone cancer is incredibly painful, being prescribed every opiate under the sun to manage it, the only thing that provided him relief was cannabis. That was a moment for me as a young lawyer and a lobbyist working in Tallahassee that I said, I'm going to go pursue a dream and I'm going to go do this. So for me, I've seen it firsthand. So the work you guys are doing is critically important, and it's something that I think everybody in the long run, but just make no mistake about it. This may feel like the hardest part of the process. This is not the hardest part of the process. Handing out the licenses to the people that you're going to entrust with those licenses to serve the people of Alabama and fulfill the will of the legislature that passed this law, doing that, that's the hard part. Because ultimately, getting the license is one thing. Actually operating it and scaling it and delivering this medicine to people in Alabama, that is truly the hard part. And I've had experience, I've scaled, and our team has scaled successfully 3 times in the state of Florida, which very much from a regulatory standpoint for these vertically integrated licenses mirrors very similar to what it is y'all are trying to build here. And that process of being a vertically integrated operator is incredibly hard. There is no safety valve. There is no wholesale valve. There is no button that you can push. If you want to deliver SKUs, if you want to have patients have the opportunity to have a myriad of available forms to consume this medicine, you got to be really good at what you do, and more importantly, you got to be incredibly disciplined. This is not a get a license and figure it out later type industry. You can burn cash very quickly, and all you got to do is jump onto Google and start typing in and talking about cannabis companies having failures across the United States because they over deployed themselves into too many markets, realized how expensive it was, and had to pull out. And several of those folks came and talked to you this week, including having to pull out of key states in this year, in 2023, while these applications were pending. So I'm not bringing that up to throw shade at anybody. I'm bringing that up to merely say this is a hard, capital-intensive industry, and when you're in a vertical market, it's even harder. And I would submit to you that we are probably one of the only operators that stood before you that has successfully scaled in a vertical market 3 times over in Florida. One of the original licenses that scaled, took another one and scaled it, and we are now on our 3rd. And this is one that is personal for us. We put the whole team back together, and we pride ourselves in the fact that we brought over 400 different product SKUs to market since we launched in August of 2022. We have serviced over 60,000 patients. We currently operate 2 cultivation facilities, both greenhouses, and I heard some questions in the last presentation. I look forward to answering questions on greenhouse, because I do believe in indoor grow. We've operated true indoor grows too, but I'm also a big believer in greenhouse because I don't think you can replace the power and the benefits of natural sunlight. The only knock on greenhouses is if you don't invest the money to properly condition the environment of the inside of a greenhouse. If you do so, our greenhouses, if anyone came to tour them in Florida, consistently are between 77 and 80 degrees with sub 50% humidity in our greenhouses in Florida. Most of our staff, if you saw the video, wear long sleeve shirts. That's both for a PPE protection standpoint, from a patient safety standpoint, but it's also because it's a little chilly in there. And that's because we invest in our grow. Everything for us starts and ends with the cultivation facility. You're only as good as what you put out. And the entire process, whether you're making distillate, whether you're making ancillary products, all starts with the quality of your flower. And there are very few companies that have made that level of an investment. We're not the only ones that say that, though. As a cannabis company, we have to go through, and a licensee in Florida, we have to go through a good manufacturing practices audits and get approved. We took it one step further and didn't just do the bare minimum under Florida law. We invited the Michigan State University, which has the first program for a CSQ GMP audit, higher standard, invited them down to audit our facilities, and we passed on the first try with over a 99% ratio just this year. So our team, while we like to, we're in the cannabis industry, we treat ourselves because we are providing medicine to patients who are being prescribed that medicine by doctors. Yes, there's always going to be legacy cannabis culture, and yes, there's always going to be legacy cannabis products, but at the end of the day, when we are in a medical market, you have to act as if you're in a medical market, and you have to deliver product to patients that they can count on, that is consistent, that has a similar dosing every time, and in your case, in the state of Alabama, where flower is not going to be allowed to be consumed, which, by the way, was exactly how Florida was from 2017 to 2019, you have to be very good at making those ancillary products. But more importantly, medical patients, different patients have different delivery methods that are going to work for them. Some may be a tincture or a nectar, which we were one of the first to develop in Florida. Some may be a solventless edible. That packs a bigger punch for someone with pain. We were the first to put solventless edibles on the market in Florida. And I'm not saying way back in time. The market started in Florida in 2017. We were the first to put solventless edibles on the market in 2022. We just did it as soon as we launched our business. We were also the first to introduce a 2-to-1 ratioed CBN sleep edible in the state of Florida. Not True Leaf, not Cure Leaf, not Verano, us. And I'm very proud of the team because one of the things I've done as a CEO is I recognize as a CEO, you're never going to be the smartest person in the room, and you don't want to be the smartest person in the room as a leader. You want to create an environment where you empower the people around you to work really hard, to be innovative, and to be specialists in their own lane, and that's what we've done. And as a result of that, we've led the state in innovation. Some might ask, why are we not outside of Florida? Well, let me be real clear. This is our first foray out of Florida. As the rest of the industry went and chased multiple states across the country and trying to get as big as they could, as quick as they could, to get the highest valuation, to drive the highest stock price, we focused on one state. And that's kind of a core principle for me, to go deep, not wide. If I'm going to go into a market and I'm going to partner with a community, because that's exactly what we're doing, we're partnering with communities, you need to go deep, not wide. More importantly, I need to respect where Alabama wants to be met on cannabis. I need to meet the people in Alabama in their communities where they want to be met on cannabis. There is no one-size-fits-all for cannabis. For me and for our team, it's about partnering with someone like Troy and partnering with our partners in Henniger and figuring out exactly how we can help enhance the state of Alabama and be respectful of Alabama's community and Alabama's morals and how they want to be met on cannabis. And that's what we've done in Florida. Each community is different. How we meet consumers in Miami is different than how we meet consumers in Pensacola. How we address and work with consumers and outreach in Pensacola is different than how we meet with folks in Jacksonville. You have to have a tailored approach on how to enter each market. And if you're trying to do that across 15 states, 10 states, 8 states, that gets to be real hard. That's why we've chosen to be deep, not wide. And this would be the second market for us, and we'd be incredibly excited to be able to partner with you. I also want to talk a little bit about a regulatory partnership. This is a new market. It's a nascent market. I mean, yeah, it's 6, 7, 8 years old, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to other markets, we are in the first inning of the baseball game. And a strong partnership between licensees and regulators is critical. And I have always enjoyed and welcomed that strong regulatory partnership. When Florida, we had a director, actually I think was here speaking today, Chris Ferguson, who's now works with Verano. When he was the director of OMU in Florida, we actually invited him down to our cultivation facility to come tour and train new employees that he had hired. As a joke, I didn't tell our grow team that day that 43 state agents were going to show up for a tour. So when the 43 state agents pulled onto the property, there was a few mild heart attacks, and I got a good laugh out of them. But at the end of the day, They used our facility to train their employees, and we welcomed it. Some of my peers thought we were crazy. I said, I want this partnership because nobody's perfect. I don't care what regulated industry you're in, financial services, retirement, home health care, any type of health care, securities, there's always going to be problems. No one's perfect. We are not perfect. But if you have that strong regulator partnership from day one and you're working to create literally in real time regulations to how to deal with a nascent market that's growing, it's a much better thing than kind of getting in a silo. And for anybody to stand before you and kind of what Troy talked about in the beginning and tell you that they've never had a regulatory infraction, just call the Office of Medical Marijuana Use in Florida and ask that question as you make your deliberations. I think you're going to find the answer to that. If anybody that said they never had an infraction might have hit their head on the way in here and forgotten a few things, because it doesn't exist. This is a new market, but if you have a partnership with regulators and you have the opportunity to say, hey, okay, maybe this wasn't right. What if we think about a new way to do this or a new regulation? That to me is incredibly important. Again, you're tasked with an incredibly hard job, and I think you have to make your ruling by Tuesday. And that's pretty quick. You've been presented a lot of information from a lot of different people who have probably spent a lot of time. I know we've spent a lot of time. We've been working on this since May of 2021 here in Alabama. First trip to Henniger, I believe, was in May of 2021. So pretty much before you even had a law, it was rumblings that the law was going through the legislature. We identified in Alabama because we're a Southern company. We're not founded somewhere else. We're founded in Florida. My father was from Jay, Florida, just on the other side of the border, right near Pensacola. So for us, this was a natural extension of somewhere we wanted to be, where we could bring our specialized knowledge, go deep, not wide into Alabama with our partnerships, and ultimately bring the highest standard of products to Alabama, knowing that you're not going to have flower be legal. That's a big distinguishing factor from a lot of the folks that you're going to hear from. It takes a very specialized operation, especially in a vertical market, to be able to deliver that product to market consistently and not have just flower as a bailout. So ultimately, we made this decision in 2021 to be here. We've been here for the entirety of the process. I'm not going to say much more because I really look forward to the question and answer segment. I'd love to answer questions. I know Troy would too. But I really hope you would consider us. I believe would be great partners, both from a regulatory standpoint, but more importantly, we're only here because we want to see Alabama get relief in two ways, as Troy said. One, patients get relief and get off opioids, which I can tell you one of my favorite parts of my job as a CEO is going to my stores. I literally sit on the couch in the store and I talk to patients. I love hearing their stories, whether it's veterans who we partner with all throughout Florida, veterans organizations that come in and tell us how, I can tell you our governor, Ron DeSantis, when he was in Congress, I've been a lobbyist in Washington working on cannabis reform since right around 2014. He was one of the few friendly faces we had when we'd go talk to Republicans about cannabis because of his veteran background and him seeing exactly what happens. And when you talk to veterans and they can tell you that they used to be on these incredible doses of opioids and now they're using cannabis to get off of it, that makes me get up in the morning, get out of the bed and put my feet on the ground. When you go talk to people that are experiencing incredible pain or people that are having anxiety and can't sleep and they're telling you they can take a CBN edible and get a good 8-10 hours of sleep, that makes you get out of bed and put your feet on the ground. I think the people of Alabama should have the same chance to be able to do that, and we're here to hopefully fulfill that promise. So I appreciate all of your time and letting us be here. Again, your job is not easy. And this, by the way, as I said, is the easy part, because the minute you hand those licenses out and pick your horses, you need them to run and run to the finish line. And if you look at Florida, of the original 7 that were issued, and I was a part of that original process, I was a part of the amendment process, the legislative process, and ultimately have scaled 3 licenses. Of those original 7, only 3 made it before they started selling them off and doing private equity transactions. You can blow 80, 90 million like that. This is an incredibly capital-intensive business. The cost of debt is north of 18%, which mostly is a big way this stuff gets financed. So unless you're an operator, it can vaporize very quickly. So I'd hope you put your trust in us. Happy to answer any questions, and I guess I'll sit down and figure out who you want to ask questions of, or if you have anything else, Troy, but thank you all again for your time.
Anyone else want to address the commission? Mr. King?
No, sir.
Okay.
I think we'll give the floor back to y'all.
Okay. Well, thank you. Got plenty of time for questions and answers. Yes, sir, Mr. Gamble.
2 or 3 questions. First, what do you operate under? What name do you operate under in Florida?
It's called Green Century Holdings, and our trade name is Sunburn Cannabis.
Sunburn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great presentation, by the way. Dispensaries.
Yes, sir.
Where will your dispensaries be located?
So we've identified, we have a partner in Florida that actually partners with us on the real estate, acquires the sites. We use prefab buildings. That's already a floor plan of a dispensary that has already been approved at the highest standards in Florida from a safety, security standpoint, as well as ingress, egress, parking, ADA. And we've identified, I believe they've identified 4 or 5 sites throughout the state, and the prefab buildings are the ones we're already using in Florida too. So we have contracts in place that if we are awarded a license, we will sign the leases and ultimately order the buildings. The lead time on the buildings is right about 14 weeks.
Can you tell me the cities?
Troy, you know the cities? Go ahead.
Well, may I qualify this with just one thing? Coming from the rural part of Alabama, I'm going to tell you the same cities everybody's going to tell you, because people are going to gravitate naturally towards population centers: Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, Montgomery. What I would like to suggest is that we have delayed in formalizing leases because, as a son of rural Alabama, I assume at some point we're going to have an access to care issue that's going to catch up with this. We're not going to want to neglect and cause people to have great distances to travel in great pain. So we are prepared to be in population centers. All of the population centers, everybody else is identifying for you. But we're also prepared to use some of the dispensary locations to service rural parts of Alabama. I believe that's important as a son of rural Alabama. So, as Brady says, we've identified locations, we can sign leases, and we will have buildings in place before we have product to put in them. But we have maintained the flexibility that if the commission identifies access to care as a problem, we want the flexibility to help you fix that.
Okay, thank you. And then what are your projected startup costs, and then how you plan on funding them?
So it would be both. First, on funding, it would be the same way we've always done it. We have a strong base of equity investors. We've raised over $100 million total for our Florida operation to date, with strong interest to actually increase that. We have been offered the opportunities to go outside of Florida with other financings. Again, we've chosen very closely where we'd like to go. We chose Alabama. So it'd be a combination of debt and equity, again, with a focus primarily on equity from our existing investors. Startup costs to get the initial cultivation facility online in Henniger, which they granted us 80 acres of land that was fully entitled, as well as gas and power to be able to do that from the Economic Development Council there. So we have land already, the land's already done. They've already granted that to us. Troy, I believe it was part of our application. I think it's going to be somewhere, it's right around $355 a square foot to build the facility. We would lay the pad for the initial part of a much bigger facility. So we lay the infrastructure down one time, put the overall building on top of it, usually generally a metal building, metal corrugated building with insulation. You double insulate it, basically a building in the building. And then we can turn bays on, cultivation bays and processing bays on an as needed basis once we see how the market grows. To me, as Florida grew, that was the safest way and most efficient way to scale from a capital standpoint. We have a pretty good formula on knowing what each dispensary is going to pull from the grow. It's about a 4,000 square foot room per dispensary in Florida right now. It'll probably be a little lighter here. It'll probably be about half that because flower is not available to be sold. And usually in the first 1 to 2 years of the marketplace, patient adoption's not that high. It took almost 3.5 years to cross that 300,000 threshold in Florida of patients. And still, we're only growing at about 0.6 on a month-over-month basis in Florida from new patient growth. So I would say the startup cost is probably right around $10 million to get the dispensaries online, get the phase 1 grow, phase 1 processing, and phase 1 lab in place, and ultimately the distribution network that you need to put together between vans, et cetera. And if the commission will ultimately ever allow delivery, which I would highly recommend you allow delivery, especially for patients that are in, we're serving some of the folks that are dealing with extreme medical issues. You don't necessarily want them with compromised immune systems having to go to a dispensary and interact with other people. Very proud that we launched the first home delivery network in the state of Florida. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good because we launched it right on the eve of the COVID lockdowns and shutdowns. So when COVID happened and they started shutting things down, we were the only company that could actually go home deliver. So that was a big catalyst for us. Again, didn't plan for it. Better to be lucky than good. But we found that delivery is incredibly helpful in treating those very high-risk patients and getting them the medicine they need in a safe and secure way. We can do contactless delivery at the front door and still have it be fully compliant. So we built a technology stack out that actually allows us to be fully compliant. It's a very similar system that you'd see in Big Pharma.
All right, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. I'm not sure that delivery will ever be, I don't know if that can be considered by the commission because so much is originated through the legislature.
Yes, sir. And I'm familiar with that. It's just something as the process goes in Florida, there was always, our regulators would make recommendations in their annual testimony to the health committees about what they saw coming and how they potentially like to see the law amended. And sometimes the amendments happen. Delivery was one of those things. That's how it happened in Florida. So just speaking more, it's just something to think about in the future.
Right. This resolution, Troy, this is just an updated version of the one you gave us about a year ago.
No, sir, this was passed Monday night.
Well, yeah, but it's an updated version of the one about a year ago.
That's correct. We didn't want it to be stale. We wanted you to know we're still welcome there.
I see. Yeah.
They are still excited about a $20 million a year impact and 150 jobs. So I was talking to the mayor who can't be here. He's got a class, and he said, what can we do so that they know that this is a current, fresh commitment? So we wanted to recommit to them. We just recommitted our vows.
I see. It's more timely. Appreciate that. Any other? Yes, sir, Mr. Harwell.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Who will be in charge of the day-to-day operation?
Well, we will have I guess Charles Bailey.
Yeah, so we'll have a his operation. Charles Bailey is our operation.
Get in the microphone there
Yes,
if you
sir,
don't
I'm
mind
sorry.
there.
As a lawyer, I forgot. I'm sorry. A gentleman by the name of Charles Bailey would be in charge of the day-to-day operations. He'd be the state president of Alabama. He's been with us from day one of our first scale up in Florida. So he has literally, it's like that farmer insurance commercial. He's seen it. At the end of the day, he would be the state, and Troy will be, an integral part in running Alabama as well. And Andy as our farmer.
Okay. So I guess you'll be doing pods to start with to be done in 30 days.
Yes, sir. That's about the only way anybody's going to be able to get them done. Those nice little Connex boxes that show up. Unless anybody's went out and built a facility ahead of getting a license, which is, in my opinion, a kamikaze flight.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harwell.
I will just mention, just so you know, Charles Bailey is from, I guess he's from Chattanooga.
Chattanooga.
So Henniger is home for him. So he views this as he even though he's a Tennessee guy, he views this as coming home.
Yeah. So what is his background?
Agriculture, as well as he started with us at our first farm in Ruskin, Florida, which is just on the southeast side of Tampa. Big tomato farm, so started there and ultimately turned that farm into a cannabis farm, retrofitted it, and then he's been with us as our VP of operations since 2017.
Okay.
So he scaled now with us twice. He scaled the last business as well as he scaled this business with us. He's the one that would, if he was standing here today, I'd give him the high five on getting that CSQ GMP audit passage at 99%, the only one in the state to get that done. One of only 2 cannabis companies nationwide to receive that CSQ audit. That was him, as well as he manages basically cultivation, processing, lab, and how it all comes together, and then ultimately getting out to the stores. There would be a separate person that would be running the dispensaries, a retail director in our org. That's how we've always, so you kind of have bifurcation of the roles. Retail runs everything inside the door, farm and operations hands it to the door, and then they sell it. Then there's a whole separate back office for retail compliance and farm compliance. Because we run our own audits. We actually did a public records request. We were able to get the inspection form that the state of Florida inspectors use from the Office of Medical Marijuana Use so that we could run our own inspections to make sure that when they show up, it's a relatively clean inspection. And since we put that process in place, and one of our compliance directors is sitting here today, Caesar in the front row, that has resulted in us having clean inspections every single time we've had an inspection since we put that process in place.
Yeah. One of the concerns we have in Alabama, we only have one testing site.
Yes,
So
that is
how
a
many
problem.
do y'all have in Florida?
We have multiple labs in Florida. So I want to say it's right up to about 8 or 9 labs here. But I got a feeling once you issue these licenses, you're going to see some lab companies popping up here. That's what happened last time. So when Florida started in 2017, there was only 2 labs, ACS and CATIA. Now I think there's 7 or 8 as the market has grown.
He has a long way from Grand Bay to North Alabama.
And it's actually, it can prove to be a big problem because as the market matures and gets bigger, lead times slow down. So now you got products sitting in vaults that can't be sold as you're waiting for a lab COA to come in. So it's a key item. Again, I would say that's one of those areas where the industry and market participants and licensees need to partner with the regulators to come up with better solutions. And that's what we did in Florida. And actually laying out we had full rulemaking rules workshops with OMU where we laid out exactly what the new lab testing requirements should be. It was public comment, full process, and once those new processes and the new rules went into place is what was the springboard for additional labs being able to come into Florida and get licensed to help ease some of that clog that was there.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Jensen, got a question?
So initially you're going to start off with pod, but phase 2 or 3 or whatever it's going to be, is it an indoor grow operation or is it greenhouse or?
It'd be indoor grow primarily for a bulk of the product. You can also run greenhouse. Our initial plan, like I said, was to do a metal building, indoor grow, in double insulated rooms inside the rooms. I am a fan of greenhouse though, so as the market matures with enough property, it's 80 acres, I would like to run some greenhouse because you can't replicate the sun. And when you actually look at the cannabinoid profile, if you study COAs from indoor versus greenhouse, as long as you condition the greenhouse and invest the money in the dehumidification, the dragon systems, you invest in the proper HVAC, air movement fans, we cool from underneath. A lot of the grows you'll go into, you'll see they're cooling from the top down, which if you think about it, heat rises. Ultimately, then you're creating a layer of humidity right above the plants, and humidity is absolutely the biggest disaster you could ever have with the cannabis plant. So ultimately, it's learnings that we actually move HVAC from there underneath, but if you condition a room in a greenhouse correctly, the terpene profile, which is ultimately what patients are going to be looking for, the first thing anybody hears about is THC, 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 THC percentage. Ultimately, the terpene profile from a scientific standpoint and from a medical standpoint, that is where most of the benefits are derived from. And if you look at the terpene profiles and COAs between indoor grows and greenhouse grows, and we do it in Florida all the time because we're operating greenhouse in Florida right now, our terp profiles are significantly better than most of our competitors who are operating true indoor. The last thing I would tell you on kind of the difference between indoor and greenhouse, I mean, you can put an inexperienced driver in a Ferrari and it's not going to go so well, or you could put a very experienced driver in a Honda Civic and the drive's going to be a little bit better. It's also how you operate the facility and your practices and protocols on how you handle the plant. A lot of people treat this plant as biomass. And unfortunately, it's not corn, because if you look at the buds on a cannabis plant, those buds, and you see the crystals on it, those are the terpenes. And if you mishandle that plant during the process, when you're, we call it shaving the legs, when you're taking the lower branches off the plant, little steps you take when you harvest, if you beat it up when you harvest it, you're destroying the terpene profile. Because as you beat it, as you mishandle it and as it's going through the process, it's not hemp, it's not industrial hemp, you are knocking cannabinoids off the plant that that's what they're coming to you to get. And ultimately, it's also how you treat the plant. It's a long-winded way of saying it's both grow medium, where it's grown, but more importantly, how it's grown and how the entire process is handled.
And on this document I have, I don't see anything about the processing. I assume it's in the same building.
Yes, sir.
And how long do you think that's going to take to get some of it to get up and running?
Well, I mean, that's simultaneous. You got to build cultivation and processing would be built at the same time. It's all on a workflow to comply with GMP. We have a pretty good formula because that's one of the GMP requirements. It's how the product moves through the maze of the facility, from clones to veg plants to flower rooms, ultimately to post-harvest, to dry cure, to processing, and then in this case, because we're not selling flower, to the lab, ultimately to packaging, to distribution, the quarantine area for holding, pre-test results being released, and then ultimately just distribution to the dispensaries. That's all. We've got a really good formula for that. Like I've said, we've operated close to, I think we're on our 6th cultivation facility. We're about to turn on number 7 in Florida and been able to build it. It would be built at the same time. The dry cure time is significantly different, though, when you're not selling it as flower. So when you're not selling it, in our normal dry cure time with flower is right around 22, 23 days, depending on what the strain, different strains are a little bit different. Ultimately, when you're just growing for extraction, the dry cure time is much quicker because you're not necessarily worried about drying things all the way out. You're squishing it for either distillate or you're putting it in the ice bath for solventless. So it's a little bit of a different facility, but as we've laid out the plans for the facility in Henniger, there's optionality in case the Alabama legislature will ever want to change the law like Florida did in 2019 and allow for flower. So our initial facility setup will be geared towards compliance with this law and this framework that's been put down, but there'll be expansion capability in case that ever changes in the future.
So once you start cultivation, which I said was relatively quick, 30 days, about how long do you think until you have bad word biomass? I guess.
No, not a bad word. It is what it is.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's the vegetative cycle on a plant's right around 35 days. The flower cycle's right around 60 days. Like I said, you're not looking at much of a cure time when it comes to distillate baked products and non-flower products. So you're looking at a finished product in probably under 120 days is what the plant's going to allow. Anybody that can do it quicker than that moved actual plants into Alabama.
So then I guess I'm assuming that within 120 days you will have the processing facility.
Oh, it'll be done before. It'll be built simultaneous with the grow.
So you say your grow's 30 days. That means your processing is going to be done in 30 days?
No, not the facility built in 30 days. I'm saying the cultivation, the veg process. So a veg plant, from the time it goes from a clone to a plant that can be moved into the flowering cycle is right around 35 days.
Okay.
But as far as building the facilities, everything will be constructed at the same time. When we call for inspections, it's going to be to inspect everything because you want it done and ready. The minute you pull the plants out from flower, you want to be able to move into post-processing. It'll be done simultaneously.
Okay. And then you said you went deep in Florida, and now Alabama's on the border, so it makes sense. Why not Georgia?
We thought about Georgia. At the time, we weren't ready to go through that application process. And that, it's been...
And I'm not there.
Yeah, he's not there either. I mean, I like Troy. And secondarily, the application process, when we weren't ready for that application process. When it happened very quickly. They issued a limited amount of licenses. It's a low THC market with a very high high barrier to entry. I think they've only issued 2 or 3 there total. So for us, Alabama, when it came online, it was when we were coming online in Florida, and it was a much more fitting place for us to go. And on the medical side of the market and how you guys built the market was much more appealing to us.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Any other commission member have a question or comments? I'd like to thank the folks from RX Connection. Thank y'all for showing up today and making a presentation. Good information to hear from.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank all of you for being here. Before we dismiss, any commissioner have a question? Any staff need to tell us anything before? Yes, sir, Justin.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, for the record, the applicant that was scheduled for today and unable to make the presentation, that's applicant number 1672, FFD Alabama Holdings, LLC. You have their application and applicant summary. There were no pass-fail notations on the application, and as you noted earlier, they did not make a presentation but are still under consideration for a license.
Thank you, Justin. I forgot to give you that opportunity to go over those couple of items. Any other commissioners? Yes, sir, Dr. Jensen.
So on this FFD, their cultivation processing is in a location, it says 0 Morris Hill Road. What city is that? Do you know?
Let Brittany look that up for Dr. Jensen. See if we can get that information here in just a minute. Justin, best of your knowledge, we have 8 tomorrow. Yes. Okay, thank you.
At 8 tomorrow?
We have at 8:30, but we have 8 presentations to hear from tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we
oh boy.
fun. Yeah, we will reconvene at 8:30. You got find it, Brittany?
Yes, FFD's cultivation facility at 0 Morris Hill Road is located in Sims, Alabama, which is Mobile County. The processing facility, the same.
Mobile County. That it. Okay, any other questions before we take a motion? Okay, we'll now entertain a motion to recess until tomorrow morning at 8:30. Got a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion from Dr. Blake Moore. Is there a second? Second from Dr. Jensen. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. We will be in recess till tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Same room. Thank you.